Chapter 3369. It is good that Sir can think this way. The Chongling princess smiled sweetly and said, "This palace is also happy for that Diao Wu. Of course this palace also wishes that I was that Diao Wu. Other than having the love of royal father and royal mother in this world, there is also a warrior like Sir to protect my safety. That is this palace's life desire. It is a pity that this palace's home is destroyed and the country is dead. Even if this palace wants to find the truth, it is impossible." Diao Wu, oh no, the Chongling princess. Yuanya looked at the bitterness in the Chongling princess' smile and his heart ached. He said, "This one originally did not know why I sought Diao Wu. Previously I just wanted to see her and know that she was safe. But now that I have seen your highness, this one knows that Diao Wu is this one's favorite. While you do not admit that you are Diao Wu and do not know if you are Diao Wu, but in this one's heart you are Diao Wu. Your wish is this one's wish. This one knows what you want. This one will do his best to help you restore your country." Yuanya. The Chongling princess' face was red. She looked at Yuanya with tears in her eyes and said, "This is the most delightful thing this one has heard after the country was destroyed." Yuanya grinned. Xiao Jian looked down on him more than when he was hiding in a tree and watching Xiaohua practice. Damn it, the Chongling princess did not say anything, and this guy is carrying the burden of restoring the country. Do you think that restoring the country is child's play? This one is your master. This one has not restored my country yet. Why do you not know how to help this one? It is a pity that restoring the country is not something that can be accomplished with just a few words. While you are brave, you are just a talented general." The Chongling princess sighed. "This one understands your intentions. This one really wishes that she was Diao Wu." Yuanya smiled slightly and pointed at Xiaohua. "This one does not have the power to help you restore your country, but Taoist Xiao does. He is the most benevolent and has great abilities. Not to mention helping you restore your country, even helping you kill the Copper Pillar State would be easy." "Really?" The Chongling princess showed joy on her face. She turned to look at Xiaohua. "Immortal Elder, this servant knows that your powers are boundless, but this servant has nothing on me right now. I only have dozens of personal guards and do not dare to make any promises. Furthermore, I may not be the Diao Wu that Yuanya spoke of, so I really don't dare to ask Senior Immortal to help. Now that I've heard Yuanya's words, Senior Immortal is so merciful, then I implore Senior Immortal to stand up for my Jiang family, help me sweep away the strong enemies of Jiang country, and return my Jiang family's country." This. Xiaohua watched with interest as Yuanya and Diao Wu recognized each other. He had not expected such a change to occur. Xiaohua had thought about helping the Chongling princess restore her country, but when he thought about how this was a battle between countries, what was there for him, a cultivator, to get involved? He had given up. Now that the Chongling princess had spoken, he did not know how to answer. "Immortal Elder." Seeing Xiaohua hesitate, the Chongling princess no longer had any misgivings. She knelt on the ground and cried, "This servant is a lonely woman now. This servant does not dare to speak of reviving the country. However, this servant's father rules the country with virtue, and Mother Empress is the ruler of the world. This servant feels that my Jiang country is 100 times stronger than the Copper Pillar State. However, this kind of Jiang country was actually destroyed by the Copper Pillar State. I am unwilling to accept this. Even if Immortal Elder cannot help this servant restore the country, please take into account that this servant may be Diao Wu and help this servant get revenge for this servant's father who worked day and night for this servant." The Chongling princess knelt down. Granny Ji naturally could not stand and hurriedly knelt on the ground. Yuanya also came to join in the fun. He knelt next to the Chongling princess and said, "Taoist Elder, please be merciful. How pitiful is the Chongling princess. Can't you help her? This servant is willing to work like an ox or a horse to repay Taoist Elder's favor." "Damn it, Yuanya, you are this old man's disciple. If this old man does not speak, how can you work like an ox or a horse for Elder Xiao?" Xiao Jian complained inside for a long time and finally cursed. Yuanya scratched his head and said with a smile, "Yes, master, then in the next life." Xiaohua wryly smiled. He waved his sleeve and helped everyone up. "All of you get up. It is not impossible for me to avenge you. This old man is now an enemy of the Bronze Pillar country. Killing one is killing 10 is also killing. However, this old man does not understand the matter of restoring the country. This matter needs to be considered. This old man cannot agree to you so easily. Many thanks, immortal elder. The Chongling princess was overjoyed when she heard this. She said to Yuan Ye, many thanks for sir's plea. If sir does not mind, can this servant call you brother and sister? Of course. Yuan Ye was overjoyed. Just as he was about to agree, Lu Yi hurriedly called out from in front of Xiaohua, Brother Ye, you can call each other brother and sister but not in name. Why? Yuan Ye was puzzled and looked at Lu Yi. At the side, the Chongling princess blushed and said in a low voice, this servant can call you brother Ye. Then what should I call you? Yuan Ye smiled and rubbed his hands. He did not know what to call the Chongling princess. Nonsense, of course it is Sister Qing. The black bear spirit finally spoke from the side after being stifled for a long time. The Chongling princess glared at the black bear spirit and said in a low voice, in the imperial palace, father calls this little sister Chongling. Brother calls this little sister Wangmei. However, brother Ye does not have the throne, so you can call me Chongling. And then Chongling. Yuan Ye said with a smile. In reality he still called Yuan Ye Diewu in his mind. Brother Ye, this little sister's matter is entrusted to brother. The Chongling princess bowed and said. Yuan Ye's arm trembled slightly. He helped the Chongling princess up and said, do not worry, this brother will do his best to help you restore the country. Little brat. Xiao Jian looked helplessly at Yuan Ye and cursed inwardly. He said it was enough to help her get revenge. Xiaohua was just saying it and did not care. Restore the country. Thinking of this, Xiao Jian looked at the Chongling princess and frowned slightly. Xiao Jian. Just as Xiao Jian's thoughts wandered, Xiaohua's voice sounded. What do you think should be done? Senior. Xiao Jian raised his head and said without hiding anything, this matter involves the fate of an entire country. It's not a child's play. I didn't think about it carefully before. Please give me some time to think about it. All right, Xiaohua nodded and said, think carefully here. This old man will listen to your opinion first. Then he said to the Chongling princess, Chongling, you can leave. First clean up the arrow wounds on your body. When this old man has a plan, I will answer your request. The Chongling princess was very disappointed, but she knew that Xiaohua would not casually agree to this matter. She forced a smile, bowed and left with Granny Ji. Old master. When the Chongling princess and the others disappeared from the door, Lu Yi said with a frown, this Chongling princess does not seem appropriate. Is that so? Xiaohua said with a smile, what do you feel is inappropriate? This lowly one's intuition is that this Chongling princess is Diao Wu. Lu Yi felt injustice for Yuan Ye. When Brother Ye spoke of the wound, the Chongling princess' tone changed slightly, and this lowly one felt her heart beat violently. It can be said that Brother Ye's words smashed into her heart like a boulder. This wound must still be on her arm. We only need to examine it to know. Unfortunately, it's impossible for us to examine the most direct evidence. Yuan Ye bit his lips. He seemed to be listening but also not. No one knew what he was thinking. Also, what this lowly one does not understand is that since the Chongling princess wants to revive the country, she should admit that she is Diao Wu. As long as he was Diao Wu, Brother Ye would help him with all his might. Only then would Master help him. She was so ambiguous and didn't even try to deny it. What was she trying to do? Fortunately it was Brother Ye. If it was this lowly one, forget it. What restoration of the country? Even if it was revenge, it had nothing to do with this lowly one. Lu Yi pouted and said coldly. His horsetail whisk also drew a line in the air. Yuan Ye's soul returned and he said softly, Taoist priest, please don't blame Diao Wu. She has undergone such a huge change from a life of luxury to a life of solitude, from the daughter of a country to a life of solitude. Her father and mother are probably no longer in this world, and all the love they had for her has turned into smoke. No one would be able to get used to it and everyone would start doubting life. She denied it completely and then left some leeway. This should be the change in mood. Xiaohua looked in surprise at Yuan Ye. He had expected Yuan Ye to defend the Chongling princess, but he had not expected Yuan Ye's defense to be so direct. Also, his words were so similar to ordinary people and not like Yuan Ye who had come out of the forest. Could it be that women are the key to men's maturity? Xiaohua thought inside. Xiao Jian taught Yuan Ye for many years, but did not let him enter the world of ordinary people. This Diao Wu only saw him for half a day and he has improved so much. Actually, there is no need to blame the Chongling princess. Xiao Jian opened his eyes and said, the princess of Chongling is the last daughter of Jiang country. When Jiang country was destroyed, she did not live for herself. She doesn't just have the blood of her entire family on her shoulders, she also has the pressure of reviving her country. What she considers is not something we can imagine. She has to consider who can help her, who has the greatest value. Speaking of this, Xiao Jian glanced at Xiao Hua and said, of course Taoist Xiao has the identity of old master, and has the greatest value and the greatest ability. But he has nothing to do with the Chongling princess, and Taoist Xiao does not seem to have any intentions of helping her establish a country. Chapter 3370. Speaking of this, Xiao Jian's gaze sharpened. He glanced at Yunya and said, reviving the country is not child's play. It involves many things. If there is not enough reward, the Taoist will not act. Next, the Chongling princess will choose someone close to Elder Xiao. The Black Wind King? Haha, the Chongling princess does not dare to have a connection with the demon. Lu Yi? While he is Elder Zhao's servant, Lu Yi has never seen the Chongling princess and will not speak for her. As to Yunya, he is not the Taoist's disciple. While the Chongling princess can establish a close relationship with Yunya, once this relationship is established, he will not be able to find a better relationship. Therefore, the Chongling princess does not dare to rashly admit it. She only dared to bet on Yunya after observing. As expected of someone who had once been a monarch, Xiao Jian had a good grasp of people's hearts. In just a few words, he had almost completely peeled off the Chongling princess' thoughts. He described the feeling of loss and gain very vividly. Xiao Hua nodded as he listened. Of course, Xiao Hua did not blame the Chongling princess. People were so greedy. Even if he had saved the other could not believe him unconditionally. Fine, no need to speak of this. Xiao Hua waved his hand. It does not matter if the Chongling princess is Diao Wu or not. Left and right Yunya think she is Diao Wu. Just now this old man agreed to take revenge. Now tell me, can we help her revive her country? How confident are you? Yes, elder. Xiao Jian's expression changed. He bowed and said, this junior has already considered whether we can help the Chongling princess revive her country and should help her. And how do you say it? Xiao Hua nodded faintly as though this was not outside of his expectations. Didn't the Taoist say it before? The Taoist is going to establish a Taoist sect on the hidden immortal continent. Help the Taoist sect rise with your own power. Xiao Jian cleared his throat and said, since the Taoist is going to establish a Taoist sect, then you must have help. This junior and the others can only be considered little cats and dogs. We cannot achieve great things or be of great use. Even the many small demons of the Black Wind Ridge could not be placed on the stage. Senior needed more Taoist cultivators. Since hidden immortal continent doesn't allow Tao sects to be established, Senior can only control a country to attract more Tao sects cultivators and help Princess Ling establish her own country. This is one of the steps of Senior establishing Tao sects. It will help Tao sects achieve their wish of establishing Tao sects. What I just said is one of them. Xiao Jian then pointed outside the cave and said, Jianggua originally had a Tao cultivator senior. Look, that Tao cultivator senior was already killed by the Confucian cultivator invited by Tong Zhuguo. As for the Tao cultivator of Jianggua, Tong Zhuguo will not be able to get rid of him in a short period of time. Furthermore, the Tao sect resources that the Jiang country had accumulated over the years were also unable to be accepted by the Copper Pillar state. Therefore, if Senior uses this opportunity to assist Princess Ling in reviving her country, then all of these resources will belong to Senior. This is an extremely good opportunity for Senior to make a name for himself in hidden immortal continent. This is the second reason. There's a third one? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Of course. Xiao Jian said with a smile, Senior is around third-level essence power right now. Didn't that Left General Xueping say it before? If our Tao sect cultivators want to cultivate to the extreme, then we must have the support of a sect or a country. Senior will assist Princess Ling in establishing her country. You will naturally be the state teacher of Jianggua in the future. He then pointed at the leopard in front of him and said, This leopard is not an ordinary one. You do not know how to ride the clouds, so it is inconvenient for you to move. I will give this leopard to you. Yuanya was startled. He glanced at the leopard and immediately said gratefully, "Thank you, Taoist, for your generous gift. If I can help you, this old man will try his best to help you. You don't have to worry about that." Xiaohua laughed. "As for how to control this leopard, you can ask Black Bear." "Yes, master, this little one understands." Black Bear spirit hurriedly agreed. "The two of you can leave as well." Xiaohua was about to wave his hand to signal the two of them to leave, but suddenly thought of something and asked, "Black Bear, can you use my Dao Sex pills for your cultivation? If it's useful, you can tell this old man." "Old master," Black Bear spirit stuttered and anxiously asked, "Do you have the Emperor's Punishment pill? If you do, you can give me half of it." "What is the Emperor Punisher pill?" Xiaohua shook his head. "This old man has a lot of pills, but there is no Emperor Punisher pill that you speak of. If you have any pill formulas or something like that, feel free to show them to this old man." Black Bear spirit was originally pleasantly surprised, but now he was dejected and laughed bitterly. "Master, this little one is a demoness. Do you have a Dao Sex pill formula? Then wait a moment." Xiaohua laughed. "Lu Yi, call in the 5 cultivators of the Jiang country." "Yes, master." Now Lu Yi didn't call him Taoist priest Xiaohua anymore. Instead he called him master very smoothly. Not long after, Martial Uncle Qin brought 4 people in quickly. The moment he arrived in front of Xiaohua, he immediately knelt on the ground and greeted Senior. "Do you know what the Huangxing pill is?" Seeing Black Bear's spirit anxiously rubbing his hands at the side, Xiaohua asked straightforwardly. "Huangxing pill?" Martial Uncle Qin was startled. He looked at the leopard that had already walked in front of Yuanya and asked curiously, "That's a spirit pill for the demon pet to consume, Senior. Give me the pill formula." Xiaohua did not hold back and ordered. The more impolite Xiaohua was, the happier Martial Uncle Qin was. He anxiously took out a jade eye from his waist and handed it over respectfully. Xiaohua waved his hand and received it out of thin air. After sending it into the space not long after, he laughed. "So it's this thing, this old man has it." As he spoke, he flipped his hand and a few black spirit pills that did not have any medicinal fragrance appeared in his palm. He threw them to Black Bear spirit and said, "Today you have worked hard and done a great job. This is your reward. Look at which little demon of Black Wind Ridge has contributed a lot. You can also reward them." For 4th grade spirit pill? Seeing the Huang Xing Dan flying through the air, Martial Uncle Qin's eyes shrank and his heart jumped. He could clearly see that the Huang Xing Dan that Xiaohua had given to Black Bear spirit was at least of the 4th grade. How could Black Bear spirit understand all this? He took the Huang Xing Dan and sniffed it, muttering, "Master, are you lying to me? This pill has no taste and it doesn't have any color. Can it be used?" Great King," Martial Uncle Qin almost cried. He anxiously said, "Senior gave me a 4th grade immortal pill. I have only read about it in the records of the founder. I have never seen it with my own eyes. If you don't want it, I have 2 Huang Xing Dan that the founder refined. I can exchange it with the Great King." "In your dreams." Black Bear spirit was overjoyed. He glared at Martial Uncle Qin and bowed to Xiaohua. "Many thanks for the reward, master." Then he happily led Yuanya and the leopard out of the cave. "You all get up." Xiaohua saw that Martial Uncle Qin did not dare to get up and waved his hand to help them up. He asked, "What are your names? What Dao technique do you cultivate? Who is the founder that you are waiting for? What is the situation of your lineage now?" "Senior, my name is Qin Xiaoyao. These are my martial nephews and juniors." Martial Uncle Qin didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly bowed and replied. Furthermore, he didn't hide anything from Senior and told Senior everything he knew. Just as Xiaohua had thought, the state teacher of Jiang country was called Qin Haoyue. He was a Dao sect cultivator of the 4th level of essence energy. In the words of the Xiaoyu continent, he was a nascent soul stage master. When Qin Haoyue was still a Jindan stage cultivator, he met a Confucian scholar with the surname Jiang. Later on, this Confucian scholar had the chance to become the ruler of a country. Thus he thought of Qin Haoyue of the Dao sect. After finding Qin Haoyue, the two of them discussed and decided that Qin Haoyue would give advice to the Confucian scholar, train the Dao soldiers and recruit great generals. After several years of war, they finally established the Jiang country beside the Bronze Pillar country and the Jiasa country. The Confucian scholar was the founding monarch of the Jiang country, and Qin Haoyue was the state teacher of the Jiang country. After Qin Haoyue became the imperial advisor, other than assisting the king of the Jiang country to defend against external enemies and developing the power of the Dao sect, he was mostly provided with resources by the Jiang country to cultivate. After nearly 100 years of bitter cultivation after the fall of the founding monarch, he finally stepped into the nascent soul stage. Chapter 3371. After Qin Haoyue, Jiang country became even more famous. Previously, there was a Li country next to Jiang country, also a country founded by a Taoist sect. The Li country could not withstand Copper Pillar country's attack and merged into Jiang country. The Li country's national teacher also joined Qin Haoyue as the so-called second national teacher. Copper Pillar country's attack on the Li country was unsuccessful and naturally held hatred. But at that time, Copper Pillar country did not have the confidence to defeat Qin Haoyue and had to give up. The enmity between the two countries started from that day. Now that another 100 years had passed, Qin Haoyue's cultivation had reached a bottleneck, and he was unable to break through for a long time. The national power of the Copper Pillar nation was growing day by day, and with the help of the great artificer and the great martial master of the military school, they had recently launched an invasion of the Jiang country. Especially when Qin Haoyue was surrounded by Confucian cultivator experts and died with hatred. Jiang country lost the protection of the national teacher. Soon the capital was breached and the imperial palace fell. Other than the princess of Chongling who secretly escaped Jiang country under the cover of Qin Shaoyao and the other members of the imperial family were all killed. Of course, from the later situation, it seemed that Copper Pillar country had intentionally let the princess of Chongling go. They were using a long line to catch a big fish. Qin Shaoyao talked endlessly about the history of Jiang country and Qin Haoyue's great achievements. But Xiao Hua frowned slightly. He was not interested in these things. What he cared about was what the Jiang country's Taoist sect was like. So he had to wait for Qin Shaoyao to finish speaking and then ask about the situation in detail. Qin Shaoyao obviously did not understand what Xiao Hua was thinking, but since he was from the Jiang country, he was able to answer Xiao Hua's questions with ease. After Xiao Hua finished listening, he finally understood that the Dao sect of the Jiang country was actually somewhat similar to the Imperial Thunder sect and other sects on the Dawn Rain continent. However, in the Imperial Thunder sect, the sect master was the leader. All of the orders and important matters of the sect had weight. In the Jiang country there were two leaders. In the affairs of the country, the king was the leader, issuing decrees to educate the citizens, and the interactions between countries were all led by the king. In the development and affairs of the Dao sect, the imperial advisor was the leader, recruiting disciples, teaching disciples, recruiting Dao soldiers and training Dao soldiers were all under the responsibility of the imperial advisor. Of course, the national teacher was the national teacher, the teacher of a country and also the teacher of the king. Sometimes, the national teacher would have some opinions on the affairs of the country. Starting from the second king of Jiang country, when he saw the national teacher Qin Haoyue, he had to perform the etiquette of a disciple. Qin Haoyue was the true ruler of Jiang country. Jiang country was a country regardless of its size. It was different from the Imperial Thunder sect. Qin Haoyue could not establish a sect in the hidden immortal continent. He could only spread his branches and leaves within the Jiang country and recruit disciples from the people of the Jiang country. Although these disciples could not serve in the 8 great thunder palaces like the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect, the officials of the Jiang country had also provided them with similar positions. They could use the convenience of their position to collect resources for their own cultivation when there was hope for their cultivation. At the same time, they could also enjoy the riches of the mortal world when there was no hope for their cultivation. In fact, from Qin Xiaoyao's mouth, Xiao Hua knew that the imperial advisor Qin Haoyue did not have many direct disciples, and the Jiang country was not big either. The resources that could be provided to Qin Haoyue were already insufficient, and the disciples that could be provided to Qin Haoyue were even more stretched. Therefore, 90% of the Dao sect's power in the Jiang country was a Dao soldier that Xiao Hua had never heard of before. The so-called Dao soldiers were soldiers who had cultivated Dao techniques. Since they were soldiers, then they were not real cultivators. Their purpose in cultivating Dao techniques was to fight. Every soldier, or rather every team of soldiers, practiced a killing Dao technique. Under the leadership of a Dao general, every camp of Dao soldiers practiced several types of Dao techniques that could be used together. And these Dao generals could be Qin Haoyue's junior disciples. or disciples of other sects that had joined the Jiang country. As for the war, other than the Dao soldiers, there were also the battles of ordinary armies. This was different from the great battle of the Dao sword in the Dawn Rain continent. This was because in the army of a country, the number of Dao soldiers was limited, and the number of other armies was even more limited. Only when the ordinary army was unable to determine victory or defeat, or when the ordinary army was defeated, would the Dao soldiers enter the battlefield. Of course, once the Dao soldiers appeared, the end of the war would not be far. Qin Shaoyao could not be considered a Dao general of the Jiang country. After all, he was Qin Haoyue's junior disciple, and his cultivation was considered profound. He was in charge of guiding the cultivation of the 3 Dao generals, and the left general of the country of Shi, Xueping, was a typical Dao general. If Xiao Hua was recruited by Xueping and became the right general, then he would also be a Dao general of the country of Shi. Of course, other than the Dao generals and Dao soldiers being controlled by the national teacher Qin Haoyue as mentioned earlier, there were also some important positions in the government of the Jiang country that were controlled by him. However, these positions did not have much weight in the Jiang country, and this should be the result of the compromise between the national teacher and the king. It's really strange. Hearing the end, Xiao Hua frowned. If the hidden immortal continent does not allow the disciples of the Dao sect to establish their own sects, why would they allow the Dao sect to establish their own countries? What's the difference between this and establishing a sect? Other than the fact that the range of disciples recruited was small, there was usually a country lord who restrained each other. It was truly similar to the cultivation sects of the Dawn Rain continent. It is truly more influential than the cultivation aristocratic families. Could it be? Thinking to this point, Xiao Hua was somewhat enlightened. With the king's restraint, the Dao sect is unable to expand? Even the disciples of the Dao sect would sink into the mortal world? The resources of the Dao sect can only be limited to a single country? If the Dao sect wanted to develop, then the country had to expand. Since the country wanted to expand, it would inevitably be resisted by its neighbors. This way, the development of the country would be suppressed, and the development of the Dao sect would also be suppressed. Wasn't this killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Especially since the imperial advisor was restrained by the king. The imperial advisor would not be able to calm his heart and cultivate wholeheartedly. How could he break through? Even a nascent soul stage cultivator as strong as Qin Haoyue would probably be disturbed by the tens of thousands of affairs in the Jiang country, making it difficult for him to break through the bottleneck. He was even viewed as a thorn in the flesh by the Tongzhugua. Without waiting for him to achieve anything, he would be destroyed by the Confucian cultivators of the Tongzhugua. Damn it, Confucian cultivators are really vicious. Thinking about it, Xiao Hua couldn't help but sigh. Seeing the change in Xiao Hua's expression, Qin Shaoyao, who had been observing Xiao Hua's expression, clenched his teeth and knelt down on the ground again, shouting, "Senior Xiao, on behalf of my Qin family, I implore Senior to be merciful and use the foundation of my Dao sect to save the power of my Dao sect in Jiang country." Although Jiang country had fallen into the hands of the Tongzhugua, the power of the Dao sect had not collapsed. If Senior were to make a move, he would definitely be able to gather such power and revive the glory of the Dao sect. If Senior hesitates, Grandmaster Qin's hundreds of years of hard work will turn into flowing water. Wouldn't that be a great misfortune for the Dao sect? Furthermore, this junior dares to ask Senior to make a move. The king of Jiang country is benevolent and has won the hearts of the people in Jiang country. That Tongzhugua is a military country and has always been militaristic. If Jiang country falls into the hands of the Tongzhugua, the taxes will be many times heavier than now. A good Jiang country will definitely be turned into a mess by the Tongzhugua. The people of Jiang country will definitely be homeless and have no way to make a living. If Senior is willing to take over the position of state teacher of Jiang country, this junior will definitely join Senior's sect and help Senior retract the power of the Dao sect in Jiang country. While Qin Shaoyao had said it with deep emotions and had almost sworn an oath, Xiao Hua thought of how he had abandoned the princess of Chongling and felt slightly uncomfortable. He also understood that Qin Shaoyao no longer had anyone to rely on. If he did not rely on him, he might not even be able to leave the Black Cloud Ridge. If he could persuade him, not only would his life be saved, his future cultivation would be the same as before. Even looking at the current situation, Xiao Hua did not have many people in front of him. If Xiao Hua took over the position of state teacher of Jiang country in the future, Qin Xiaoyao could even be said to be one of the top few. Wouldn't he be even more glorious than before? After thinking for a long time, Xiaohua looked at Qin Xiaoyao, whose eyes were filled with endless anticipation, and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Qin, do you think this Xiao can take over the position of state teacher of Jiang country?" "Yes." Qin Xiaoyao nodded firmly. The present situation is very similar to the situation of Grandmaster Qin and the founding monarch of Jiang country. You have helped the Princess of Chongling, and the Princess of Chongling is the last member of the imperial family of Jiang country. In fact, this junior feels that it is even easier now than before. But Xiaohua shook his head. This old man is not interested in being state teacher, and this old man does not want to use Jiang country for my cultivation. Qin Xiaoyao was a bit hesitant. In fact, as the ruler of a country, his greatest advantage was in the control of cultivation resources. If Xiaohua didn't even care about this, then he really couldn't persuade Xiaohua. Especially now that Jiang country has been defeated and the capital has fallen. If we want to restore the country, we must reorganize the troops and rebuild the Dao soldiers. Do you think the Copper Pillar country will give us the time? Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, the Copper Pillar country will send troops over and more Confucian experts will come. With just the few of us, how can we be a match for them? Xiaohua said seriously. Also, even without these threats to restore the country, the things we need to do are not things we can do with just a touch of our lips. In truth, this is the greatest reason this Xiao does not want to take over. These trivial matters are too troublesome. This Xiao is not skilled in such trivial matters, and does not want to delay my cultivation. What Xiaohua said was the greatest hesitation in his heart. Taking revenge for the Princess of Chongling was simple. To put it bluntly, they could just charge into the imperial palace of the Copper Pillar country and kill the monarch. That would end everything. Xiaohua could do it with the concealment arts of the Mo world. But to restore the country and become the state teacher, that was a complicated matter. He did not know when Xiaohua would be able to leave Jiang country. Also, Xiaohua still had worries. That Jiang lure had been in the space for hundreds of years. If he did not wake her up, Xiaohua would not be at ease. At the star-picking tower auction, Xiaohua's main goal in bidding for the Pegasus was to go to paradise. Chapter 3372. Hearing Xiaohua speak of the worries in his heart and even faintly reveal the intention of being able to control the state teacher, Qin Xiaoyao couldn't help but be overjoyed. He almost stuttered as he said, "Senior, you're thinking too much. You are the imperial tutor. How can you handle all the trivial matters? You only need to designate a disciple, for example this Taoist sitting in front of you, and let him handle it for you. Also, as the imperial tutor, your greatest use is to resist the challenges of the imperial tutors of other countries, especially when Jiang country has conflicts with other countries. You don't need to act when it rises to the level of a country war. Even, to put it bluntly, you are a deterrent, a country's greatest reliance. You don't need to do anything, just cultivate. The higher your cultivation, the better." You really are different from the sect master of the Imperial Thunder sect. Xiaohua sighed and finally understood the other meaning of the imperial tutor. At this time Xiao Jian's eyebrows involuntarily rose and he said with a smile, "Senior, don't worry. If you are willing to be the imperial tutor, willing to stand up for the Chongling princess, willing to revive Jiang country, this junior will shoulder all the miscellaneous matters and will not let senior worry." "Indeed. This is what you are good at." Xiaohua nodded and then looked at Qin Xiaoyao and asked, "Are you sure that the descendants of Taoist Qin of Jiang country will side with this old man? Senior's cultivation is not inferior to Grandmaster, and Grandmaster does not have any cultivators of the 4th level of essence power. If you go up and call, they would be too happy, right?" Qin Xiaoyao naturally did not dare to make a guarantee, and could only answer in such a roundabout way. However, at this point Qin Xiaoyao hesitated and said with a smile, "Of course Jiang country has a second imperial tutor, Grandmaster Hong. I don't know if he died in the war. What is Xian Hong's cultivation?" Xiaohua's brows furrowed even tighter. "Grandmaster Xian Hong should be around the 4th level of essence power," Qin Xiaoyao hurriedly answered. "But elder, even if Grandmaster Xian Hong is still alive, his cultivation cannot compare to elder. Jiang country cannot be revived in his hands. The Chongling princess needs elder's help." Qin Xiaoyao's answer naturally couldn't satisfy Xiaohua. This was a very important decision. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then waved his hand and said, "You can leave. Let this old man think about it." "Yes, I understand." Qin Xiaoyao looked at the hesitant Xiao Jian and bowed before leaving with his 4 disciples. "Senior." Xiao Jian took a step forward and said in a low voice, "This is no small matter. Senior, you really have to consider it carefully. If he wanted to be the imperial advisor of the Jiang country, then the senior would have to walk to the front of the stage. Not only would the Confucian cultivators of the Copper Pillar State and the Jiasa State challenge the senior, even the imperial advisor of the state of Xi and the other countries might have a grudge against the senior. It would be impossible for senior to cultivate in peace. Furthermore, the life and death of the second imperial advisor of Jiangguo was also a troublesome matter. Of course, this junior will not take back what this junior said earlier. This junior can help senior with all the trivial matters. And you can leave as well." Xiaohua nodded. "This old man will think about it alone." But before he could finish, footsteps sounded outside the cave. Xiaohua looked up. It was Qin Xiaoyao who had just left. "What else do you want?" Xiaohua frowned and asked. Qin Xiaoyao walked a few steps quickly and hurriedly said, "This junior just walked out of the cave and immediately thought of something. This matter must be reported to senior first. If senior has made a choice, this junior will say it. This will put senior in a passive position. Go ahead and say it." "Yes." Qin Xiaoyao carefully replied. "This junior remembers hearing Grandmaster say that if a cultivator of the Dao sect wants to take charge of a country, they must first pass a test. After passing this test, they can obtain the recognition of an organization and truly become the imperial advisor. As for what this test is, what this organization is, this junior does not know." "Oh, there's such a thing?" Xiaohua was startled and looked at Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian frowned as if he did not know about this matter. He blinked a few times and shook his head at Xiaohua. "If you don't know, who would know?" Xiaohua asked Qin Xiaoyao. Qin Xiaoyao laughed bitterly and said, "Perhaps Ancestor Xian Hong knows about this. But Ancestor Xian Hong is also in danger. In this way, this junior doesn't know who will know. But this junior can't not tell senior about this. All right, this old man understands. You can leave now." Xiaohua waved his hand, indicating for Qin Xiaoyao to leave. Xiao Jian watched as Qin Xiaoyao's figure disappeared and said thoughtfully, "Senior, this junior has never heard the imperial advisor mention this before. However, since Qin Xiaoyao mentioned it now, I'm afraid it's true." "Yes, it doesn't matter." Xiaohua waved his hand. "If everything goes smoothly, these difficulties will not be in my eyes in 10 days. Xiao Jian raised his eyebrows and bowed. "Junior congratulates senior on your improvement in cultivation." "That's not certain." Xiaohua waved his hand and also took out some spirit pills and gave them to Xiao Jian. "This is for you. Cultivate. After consuming it, I'll have to trouble you in the future." Many thanks, senior." Seeing Xiaohua casually take out 3rd or 4th grade spirit pills, Xiao Jian's heart thumped wildly, and he hurriedly took them and said, "This junior owes senior a lot. It's only right for me to exhaust myself for senior. Go cultivate well, plan well, this old man will not mistreat you." Xiaohua nodded. When Xiao Jian started walking, Lu Yi also hurriedly followed Xiao Jian. However, he stopped outside the cave and sat down cross-legged, quietly waiting for Xiaohua's summons. 3 days passed quickly, and when the red sun rose from the east, Lu Yi called everyone into the cave. "Greetings, master, greetings, senior." A few respectful greetings resounded in the cave. Xiaohua listened to them. It didn't take more than 10 days, so he felt like he was a senior. Xiaohua flicked his sleeve and said with a smile, "You all can rise?" "Thank you, master." "How are the Chongling princess injuries?" Xiaohua looked at the nervous Chongling princess and asked softly. The Chongling princess hurriedly smiled and said, "Senior spirit pills are very effective. Before night fell, this junior's injuries were mostly healed. This junior thanks senior for his great kindness." "Ah, that's good." Xiaohua waved his hand. "If others did not ask for spirit pills, this old man would have almost forgotten about your arrow wound. Right, if you have any needs in the future, you can tell this old man or Lu Yi. If this old man has it, I can give it to you. Senior." The Chongling princess was clever, and had been unable to sleep these past 3 days because she had hoped for Xiaohua's news. Hearing Xiaohua say this, how could she not know Xiaohua's meaning? she asked in disbelief. Has Senior already decided? At this point she did not dare to ask. Xiao Jian and Qin Xiaoyao's eyes also lit up, excitement rising on their faces as they listened to Xiao Hua's explanation. Yes. Xiao Hua stood up and waved his sleeve. Previously this old man said that I would establish a sect on the hidden immortal continent. Also, this old man set up a blood steel in the Copper Pillar country's Seven-Yang Temple. Helping Jiang country revive is this old man's first step in establishing a sect. If this old man does not help the princess revive Jiang country, who else can I help? As long as the Chongling princess does not fear that this old man's help will cause the countries of the hidden immortal continent to attack, then so what if this old man helps you? This servant thanks Senior for his great kindness. The Chongling princess was so happy tears came out of her eyes. She almost fell to the ground again. As long as Elder helps this one recover the country and take revenge for royal father, so what if 10,000 countries attack a city, and even the entire hidden immortal continent as enemies? Haha, there is no need. Xiao Jian also smiled. Every year, there are at least 3 or 4 sects that establish countries on the hidden immortal continent. It does not matter if our Jiang country is added or not. As long as Senior Xiao is willing to help, reviving Jiang country is a small matter. This one is also waiting for Senior Xiao's help. And since we have made such a decision, Xiao Jian, Chongling and Qin Xiaoyao will have to discuss the details in the future. Xiao Hua nodded and pointed at Qin Xiaoyao. Chongling, you do not need to care about Qin Xiaoyao's previous matter. When a person is in a hopeless situation, if there is a thread of life, they will do their best to grasp it. This is why people cannot drown in the copper basin. This is an instinct. Also, if you have a grudge, the 3 of you will not cooperate well. It is not beneficial to each other. Ah, the Chongling princess sighed and said sincerely, Elder knows that this junior really did hate Daoist Qin a few days ago. Even when he came to visit, he was scolded away by this junior's subordinates women. However, just as Senior said, this junior thought clearly yesterday. Since this junior can abandon royal father and royal mother to escape Jiang country, why can't Daoist Qin abandon this junior and escape Black Cloud Ridge? Putting myself in his shoes, there is no dignity in front of death. Many thanks for princess understanding. Qin Xiaoyao's face was slightly red. What he had done was wrong to the imperial house of Jiang country. Now that the Chongling princess had forgiven him in front of Xiao Hua, how could he not be excited? All right, Xiao Hua said with a smile, since the grudge between the 2 of you is gone, then Chongling, are you satisfied with this old man's arrangements? Good, the Chongling princess nodded. Daoist Qin can contact the forces of Jiang country. Daoist Xiao has rich experience and can give this servant advice. This servant represents the imperial house of Jiang country. The 3 of us working together is the best. At this point, the Chongling princess looked at Yuan Ye next to her and said with a smile, if Brother Ye can be the vanguard general of Jiang country, will the Bronze Pillar country not be destroyed? All right, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Yuan Ye is Xiao Jian's disciple to begin with. Princess Chongling's request, you only need to tell Xiao Jian. But princess, please do not worry. Xiao Jian said with a smile. Yuan Ye is a talented general. It will be easy for him to attack cities. Chapter 3373. Seeing that he was able to help Diao Wu, Yuan Ye couldn't help but grin from ear to ear, laughing foolishly. Also, Xiao Jian, this old man has set up a formation in the shadow of the mountain. This is the way to enter and exit. Take a look. Xiao Hua smiled slightly and took out a jade eye from his bosom. He said, if there is anything you do not understand, you can ask me now. Older. Xiao Jian was puzzled and said curiously, you have not been cultivating in the past few days? This old man has to go out for a while. While the pursuers of the Copper Pillar country were killed outside Black Cloud Ridge, the traces of the pursuers cannot be completely erased. If the Copper Pillar country wants to pursue the matter, they will come to Black Cloud Ridge just as we thought. There are many Yao in Black Cloud Ridge and I fear they do not have the power to fight back against the power of a country. With this formation, all of you can hide inside without worrying about being discovered. Xiao Hua explained. Of course, you have to do enough on the surface to make people feel that you have left Black Cloud Ridge to avoid trouble. Xiao Jian took the jade eye and checked with his consciousness. Surprise appeared on his face. He said in shock, Elder, your formation. can protect hundreds of little Yao? Of course. Xiaohua smiled and asked in return, even if it does not work, do you have any other methods? Many thanks, old master. The black bear spirit was overjoyed. He did not think much, but those old bear spirits did. They had been chattering by his ear in the past few days. Now that he heard Xiaohua had plans, he naturally smiled. Immortal elder is so calculating. The Chongling princess sighed. The most dangerous place is the safest place. Other people will not think that we are hiding in Black Cloud Ridge. Also, elder's formation is even more wondrous. This one thinks that the Confucian cultivators of the Copper Pillar country will not be able to find us. Xiao Jian beamed. Where is Taoist elder going? How long will you be gone for? Of course, only Yuan Ya would ask this. How could other people ask Xiaohua such a secret? Xiaohua did not care. He waved his hand and said, busy yourselves. First make a plan. Do what you need to do. When this old man returns, I will lead you all to sweep through Copper Pillar Nation. Xiaohua didn't sit down in the first place. At this moment, an auspicious cloud appeared under his feet, carried Xiaohua and slowly flew out of the cave. I respectfully send you off, master. I hope you return victorious. The black bear spirit was timid, but he was good at flattery. He actually called out, Your Majesty. Farewell, senior. None of them had thick skin like the black bear spirit, so they could only bid farewell to senior. Xiaohua flew into the air and waved his hand. The heavenly horse landed in front of him. Xiaohua sat cross-legged on the back of the heavenly horse. The heavenly horse spread its wings of light, and the white light that filled the sky sprinkled in everyone's eyes. With a few swings of the wings of light, Xiaohua had already turned into a black dot and disappeared into the horizon. Lu Yi. Everyone's eyes were filled with envy. Inside, Yuanya could not help but pull Lu Yi aside and ask, Where are you going, Taoist priest? Why is he going there? Brother Ya. Lu Yi smiled bitterly. Didn't you already ask the Taoist before he left? The Taoist priest didn't answer you, so how would I know? Yet don't ask too much. Xiao Jian smiled. Did you forget what I told you when I met Taoist priest Xiao back then? You said a lot, and one of them was that Taoist priest Xiao was a spy. Yuanya asked, puzzled. Xiao Jian glared at Yuanya fiercely. This bastard really touched the pot that didn't boil. He then said, Taoist priest Xiaohua's cultivation hasn't recovered yet. Now is the time for him to get rid of the shackles on his body. Didn't he say that when he returned he would bring us to flatten Copper Pillar State? What? Not only was the black bear spirit stunned, even Qin Xiaoyao was shocked. Taoist priest Xiao, you said? Immortal priest Xiao isn't at his peak? Then, what kind of divine ability did he have when he was at his peak? Xiao Jian shrugged and blinked his small eyes. He said helplessly, Elder Xiao has always been like this. I have never seen his power at his peak. However, if he is already so powerful now, once he recovers his cultivation, not to mention the Imperial Academy of the Copper Pillar Nation, it is not impossible for him to wipe out the entire Copper Pillar Nation. What about the Imperial Academy? The Chongling princess asked anxiously. The Imperial Academy of Copper Pillar State is the center of Copper Pillar State's Confucian cultivators. Did Elder Xiao spar with Confucian cultivators there? It was more than just a spar. Xiao Jian smiled faintly and showed off. If Princess wants, you can go to Copper Pillar State to investigate. Now, everyone in Copper Pillar State knows the name of Taoist priest Xiaohua. Good. The Chongling princess clapped and smiled. With the help of a Taoist priest Xiao, our plan will succeed. That's right. Let's quickly discuss and arrange things before Elder Xiao returns. Qin Xiaoyao was also excited. Elder Xiao is a reassurance pill. We are the real medicine. That's right, that's right. It should be so. Xiao Jian also nodded. So the three started to discuss bit by bit. The recovery of Jiang country started. Xiaohua's trip was naturally for the light beast. He explained the situation of the earth crystal Yao milk in his meridians to the light beast. He asked about the secret art to remove the primal energies of the universe in the baby light beast's body. The light beast did not explain the specific method or secret art. It only left a place and time. Xiaohua knew that his sense of direction was far inferior to ordinary people and did not dare to leave before the time was up. But even so, after flying for an hour and looking at the same scenery in the sky, Xiaohua still could not find the path he had come from. But Xiaohua was not in a hurry. He let Little Black out and told Little Black to have the Pegasus send him to the place he had been 9 days ago. As expected, when Little Black finished speaking, the Pegasus neighed in the air and flew in a direction to the left. In just 4 hours, Xiaohua was high in the sky with strong winds again. Looking up at the sky at an unknown height, Xiaohua seemed to have understood something. Then he patted the Pegasus's neck. The Pegasus spread its wings of light again. It soared into the sky and flew in a certain direction. Seemed to be very free. Xiaohua released his spiritual will, paying attention to the movements within 200 miles. Previously, Xiaohua felt that his spirit sense, which was at the late Yuanying stage, was sufficient. But in this incomparably vast sky, not to mention 200 li, even 2000 li was insignificant. Xiaohua really didn't know how that light beast was able to determine its direction in such a high altitude. Harumph. Just when Xiaohua was about to release his Buddhist sense, the Pegasus let out a cheerful neigh. Then Xiaohua no longer needed to control it. It spread its wings and flew towards the heavenly fire, wind, and thunder in the sky. Damn it, it's actually here? Xiaohua was shocked. He wanted to take out the seal of overturning the sea to defend himself, but unfortunately the seal of overturning the sea shook in his hand and disappeared. Xiaohua's face was filled with a bitter smile. His meridians were completely blocked. How could he use any mana? I'll use my body to resist first. Xiaohua pondered. If it doesn't work, then I'll release the innate primordial water. Now only the Buddhist sect and soul cultivators can use it. No wonder the light beast didn't tell me the exact location before, and the location it left behind was also vague. Perhaps this dangerous place is its secret? Xiaohua knew that the Pegasus and the light beast had some connection, so he simply withdrew his spiritual will and Buddha's consciousness, allowing the Pegasus to gallop in the sky. At this time, the Pegasus seemed to be the real Pegasus. The boundless sky was where it should live. Traces of white light were like a layer of light curtain, blocking all the heavenly fire, wind, and lightning outside, and as the Pegasus waved its wings of light, countless threads of fire and countless sounds of thunder swayed between the light feathers. An indescribable feeling, a yearning for freedom, was emitted from the brilliance, not only penetrating the sky, but also into Xiaohua's heart. Involuntarily, Xiaohua also stood up from the Pegasus' back, as if the slightly quiet sitting cross-legged was a kind of blasphemy to the Pegasus galloping. Phew! Xiaohua let out a long breath, as if the thousands of melancholy that had accumulated in his heart had dissipated. The Pegasus' freedom also seemed to break through the heavenly fire, wind, and lightning, splitting his heart open. The long-lost feeling of liveliness gradually seeped into Xiaohua's heart like rain, and the dryness caused by Shueishue's helplessness finally had a possibility of being relieved. People, regardless of whether they were people of the secular world, qi-refining cultivators, or even cultivators with remarkable abilities, regardless of whether they had a Dao foundation or whether they had Dao skills, everything they experienced would have an impact on their heart. This impact might be slight, like a bird's feather brushing past, but it might also be deep, like a metal or stone leaving a mark in one's heart. But no matter how deep the mark was, it was only a mark. It wasn't the entirety of life, nor was it the entirety of cultivation. Because of Shueishue's helplessness death, it created an enormous shadow in Xiaohua's heart. Although he clearly knew that although Shueishue's helplessness had died, that death was only a new beginning, and a new beginning was who knows how many times higher than the old ending. But after all, Xiaohua saw a living person self-destruct in front of him without the slightest hesitation. Xiaohua let Zhang Xiaohua's stone statue accompany beside the netherworld lotus, as if he wanted to bury his heart there. However, the dead left, never to return. The living still had to live, still had to wander about in front of his eyes. As a cultivator, Xiaohua had already gradually smoothed out this mark in the past 100 years of bitter cultivation. Previously, when he saw Princess Baihua's teasing words in front of the dragon boat, it was a kind of budding mood that gradually broke through the soil. And now the unruly Pegasus, the heavenly fire, wind, and lightning, which were like mountains and seas, all allowed Xiaohua's mood, which had already grown wings, to finally fly. It was like a kind of metamorphosis, like a cocoon breaking free. It allowed Xiaohua's temperament and cultivation to improve greatly. Even the boulder-like bottleneck of the nascent soul stage that had been motionless for a long time now had a faint ripple. Everything clearly indicated that Xiaohua's trip this time was going to be fruitful. Chapter 3374. Roar. Faintly in the distance of the heavenly fire, wind and lightning, the cry of a light beast could be heard, directly entering Xiaohua's ears. Xiaohua was overjoyed. The direction of the Pegasus was exactly where the sound came from. If possible, he would be able to see the light beast soon. However, at this moment the Pegasus suddenly stopped. The waving light feathers and galloping hooves were all retracted. Even the dancing brilliance was gradually restrained. "Why aren't you going over?" Xiaohua was stunned. He sat down and patted the Pegasus' head. Unfortunately, the Pegasus only let out a few low cries and snorted a few times. The light feathers were already retracted back to its body. Its 4 hooves were only stomping on the ground, not flying forward at all. Could it be that the Pegasus is afraid of the light beast? Xiaohua looked at the distance with some suspicion, but immediately denied it. Although the Pegasus was some distance away from the light beast last time, it was very intimate with the light beast cub. After not seeing each other for a few days, there shouldn't be any estrangement, right? Suddenly, a thought flashed through Xiaohua's mind. Damn it, this light beast isn't testing me, right? This old thing. Looking at the strong heavenly fire, wind and lightning in the surroundings, the heavenly wind that seemed as if it was cast by the wind, the fiery threads that looked like small snakes would rush out from time to time, and the lightning that looked like a flood dragon would strike down with a cautious sound. Xiaohua pinched his chin and pondered very thoughtfully. If Xiaohua were to say what he was thinking now, perhaps even the light beast would laugh to the point of rolling in the sky. Because Xiaohua was thinking. Damn it, needless to say, this must be the light beast testing my strength, to see if I can pass through this section of the heavenly fire, wind and lightning. Since the Pegasus can block the heavenly fire, there is no reason why I can't block it. But my Taoist robe can't block it. Even if I take out the scholarly robe and some magic treasures, they are all external objects that can block it and not my own ability. The light beast is a demon of the 1,000 demons sacred realm. What it wants to see is the power of magic treasures. But if I don't have my Taoist robe, wouldn't I be naked? See a demon? The light beast cub and that male light beast are still okay, but isn't there still a female light beast here? Where is this Xiao supposed to put his face? The more he thought about it, the deeper the path became. Xiaohua couldn't possibly lose face for the human race, right? Perhaps I can only rely on the fire manipulation art or the lightning flash and thunder roll technique to block it with the help of the heavenly fire, wind and thunder. Just as Xiaohua's brows relaxed, the radiance beast in the distance let out another long hiss, as if urging Xiaohua to hurry. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Senior, don't be anxious. Didn't you say that tomorrow is the day? Since this junior has come early, it's better for this junior to be prepared." As he spoke, Xiaohua gathered his remaining mana and formed a seal with both hands. Outside the pure white brilliance of the Pegasus, several dozen strands of fire were like jumping butterflies. They turned into pieces and pounced toward Xiaohua, completely covering Xiaohua. "Go back and rest first." Xiaohua released his divine sense, enveloping the heavenly horse and sending it back into the small universe bag. Then the surrounding heavenly fire that seemed to be able to topple mountains and overturn seas mixed with wind and thunder, howling as it drowned Xiaohua. Xiaohua's seemingly tall and thin figure instantly disappeared. "The heavenly fire burns my broken body, the wind and thunder refine my remaining thoughts. The void is my path, the fire is my clothes. I will sing loudly and walk confidently in the universe." Within the wind and thunder, Xiaohua's lofty voice came from within. Then a young man covered in fire walked out step by step from the heavenly fire, wind and thunder. With every step, a fire lotus would grow under his feet. With every step, whistling wind and thunder would rise outside his body. The radiance beast's hiss sounded very close, but it took Xiaohua several hours to walk over step by step. These several hours of trekking were not inferior to ordinary people walking in the desert or in the river. Waves of heat and bursts of thunder were like furnace fire, like a hammer, constantly tempering Xiaohua's body. All kinds of soreness and pain drilled into Xiaohua's heart. It was only until he saw the radiance beast push the heavenly fire, wind and thunder away that he let out a sigh of relief. Xiaohua simply did not enter the Radiance Beast's brilliance. Standing outside, he bowed and said, Junior Xiaohua has come to keep the appointment today. Greetings to the two seniors. At this time, the Radiance Beast's figure was a lot bigger than before. Its lantern-sized eyes were flashing with scarlet flames. Inside the flames, one could not see any expression of the Radiance Beast. When the Radiance Beast opened its mouth, a loud buzzing sound was heard. The surrounding heavenly fire, wind and thunder were also shaken as if they were breathing. Xiaohua, since you can pass through the heavenly fire, wind and thunder by yourself, it means that you have the qualifications to enter that place. The Radiance Beast shook its huge dragon head and shouted, However, just like I said 10 days ago, we will only bring you to that place. As for how to pass through that place, how to refine the earth crystal Yao milk in your body, that is your own matter. As long as I open the entrance to that place, it can be considered that I have resolved the karma between you and me. Xiaohua smiled and said, Junior knows this is what I have said before. Moreover, since Senior left behind this heavenly fire, wind and thunder test, you have already done your utmost for this Junior. This time, the karma between you and me can be considered to be completely resolved. Xiaohua, I still have to remind you that that place is my Radiance clan's training ground. The dangers inside are definitely not comparable to the heavenly fire, wind and thunder. It is also definitely not something that you can imagine. Even I have been seriously injured there. The Radiance Beast turned its head and looked at the impatient baby Radiance Beast, who opened its mouth and sucked in some heavenly fire. It said, Moreover, if my son enters that place, he will also not be protected by me. However, he has the innate divine ability of my clan. Perhaps he will be injured, but he will definitely not die. Still have to think thrice before you act. Do not blindly act recklessly. Many thanks for Senior's concern. Since he had already come here, how could Xiaohua turn back? On the other hand, the Radiance Beast's repeated persuasion made him feel that demons were not only demons, they also had human nature. They were definitely not like what old demon Jifeng had said. Come with me. The Radiance Beast knew that Xiaohua had already made up his mind. It turned around and roared a few words. The Radiance Beast responded with a few "ao-ao" sounds, seemingly very impatient and unwilling. The other Radiance Beast that had been silent all this time lowered its head, opened its mouth and stuck out its tongue, licking the Radiance Beast's head a few times. The Radiance Beast seemed to enjoy it very much. It actually rubbed against the Radiance Beast like a spoiled child. The Radiance Beast had no choice but to lick a few more times. Only then did the Radiance Beast cheerfully fly in front of Xiaohua. Every time the Radiance Beast took a step, clouds similar to ingots would appear under its feet. Ao-ao. The Radiance Beast cried a few times in a low voice. It crouched down, exposing its back in front of Xiaohua. Hee, good as you wish. Xiaohua looked at the two Radiance Beasts that were already flying. He already understood in his heart that the Radiance Beast had formed a karma with him. The Radiance Beast had brought him to the secret training ground of the Radiance Beast clan, and the Radiance Beast had carried him there. The karma between him and them had truly disappeared. It was not what they had said earlier. Xiaohua lifted his foot and stood on the Radiance Beast's back. The Radiance Beast raised its head, feeling rather uncomfortable. However, under the urging of the Radiance Beast, the Radiance Beast moved its four hooves and followed the two Radiance Beasts towards the sky of the heavenly fire, wind, lightning. The sky of the heavenly fire, wind, lightning was naturally filled with even more violent wind and lightning. There was another layer above the first layer, and each layer was even more violent than the previous. If Xiaohua came here by himself without the protection of magic treasures, it would really be hard for him to resist the wind and lightning with just the strength of his body. However, at this moment, the fist-sized heavenly lightning and the heavenly wind that could tear the void apart were all blocked by the radiance of the Radiance Beasts. They were unable to touch Xiaohua and the Radiance Beast at all. What was special was that when Xiaohua tried to release his divine sense, the moment he released the radiance, a burst of pain that was comparable to being hit by a heavy hammer was transmitted to his Naiwan palace through his divine sense. The innate divine restriction outside his Naiwan palace was suffused with specks of golden light. Could it be? The Radiance Beast's training ground is in the sky? Xiaohua was already shocked that the Radiance Beast's training ground was in the hidden immortal continent. Now that he saw the two radiance beasts flying towards the sky, he couldn't help but be even more surprised. After flying for a full hour, the radiance beast finally stopped when it saw that there was nothing else but the heavenly lightning, heavenly wind, and the indescribable darkness between the wind and lightning. The radiance beast finally stopped. The two radiance beasts whispered to each other for a moment, then the radiance beast raised its head, opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of radiance. A scarlet color covered the entire sky. The scarlet specks in the radiance were actually the radiance beast's blood essence. Wherever the radiance landed, the heavenly fire wind lightning retreated, revealing an area of absolute darkness. When the radiance beast's blood essence splashed on the pitch-black area, numerous red specks suddenly appeared. These red specks grew bigger and bigger until they actually became red bubbles. However, when the bubbles reached a size of 10 zhang, they could no longer grow bigger. The heavenly fire wind lightning had already begun to shatter the red bubbles at the edges. Roar! Another loud roar resounded. The other radiance beast raised its head again, but this time, it didn't spit out the radiance from its mouth. Instead, it rushed out from the top of the radiance beast's head, from the two dragon horns that were a little smaller than an ordinary dragon's. Moreover, this radiance was exceptionally pure. Even the heavenly horse Guang Yu's holiness couldn't compare to it. Two beams of radiance rushed into the sky, instantly transforming into a waterfall. Thousands of thin threads shot with incomparable precision into the scarlet blood bubbles within a radius of 10 zhang. Every bubble was pierced by a thread of light. Boom! All the blood bubbles within a radius of 10 zhang burst at the same time. The pitch-black area under the blood bubbles seemed to have formed a scab. Piece by piece it cracked and piece by piece it fell off. And when all the pitch-black area disappeared, a hole of 10 zhang in size appeared in the heavenly fire wind lightning. And inside the hole it was actually the void. Hiss! Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. He really didn't expect that the Radiance Beast's training ground was actually the void. Moreover, the entrance was in the heavenly fire wind lightning sky. Chapter 3375. Xiaohua, this is the land of light trial of trials. The light beast roared, its voice shaking like thunder. My blood essence can last for 3 days. After you enter the land of light trial of trials, you must come out within 3 days. Otherwise, I'm afraid you can only be trapped in the land of light trial of trials. And this land of light trial of trials, even I, a light beast, don't dare to stay here for more than half a day. And the place I'm going to is the secret land of my light clan. I can't take you there. Of course, I'll also clearly tell you that this place is a maze in the void. Every place has dangers and every danger is fatal. Of course, within this danger zone, there must be a place similar to my secret place. If you have the opportunity, you can definitely refine the earth crystal Yao milk in your body. Roar! The other light beast at the side roared again, making Xiaohua quite puzzled. Since this light beast can speak human language, then the other light beast can naturally also speak human language. Why didn't it speak? Hearing the roar of the light beast, this light beast hesitated for a moment. After a while it sighed again. Alas, Xiaohua, I don't know why the so-called earth essence in your body is so much. The earth essence in your body is not inferior to that of a child. And your body can't contain so much earth essence. Even your so-called meridians can't contain it. The best way to get rid of the earth essence is to throw it away. There is a saying in Hidden Immortal Continent, throw away the baggage and go into battle. But since you found me, you must be unwilling to throw away the earth essence. Just now, I can see from your heavenly fire wind lightning that you have a certain foundation in body refinement. Now I'll teach you some of my light clan's secret techniques. I hope you can comprehend some of them and help you get through this difficult time. Moreover, at this time I don't need to hide it from you anymore. The only thing that can eliminate the earth crystal in my light clan's cub is the storm in the void. Relying on this powerful storm and this secret technique, ordinary cub can turn the earth crystal in their body into their own. After it finished speaking, an extremely fine crystal thread emerged from the dragon horn of the radiant beast and fell on the space between Xiaohua's eyebrows. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent and hastily closed his eyes. A burst of coldness fell on him like drops of dew. Xiaohua only felt a burst of rumbling in his head, and a burst of indescribable dizziness made his vision turn black. When he opened his eyes again, the two light beasts and the baby light beast had already disappeared. The heavenly fire, wind, and thunder in the sky were fiercely shrinking and boiling in a radius of 10 feet, swallowing the black hole inch by inch that even light could not escape. 3 days. Xiaohua looked at the black hole that was much larger than himself and hesitated. He knew that the place the light beast wanted to take him to was dangerous, but he felt that by relying on his physical body, his soul cultivation and his Buddhist cultivation he might be able to escape from danger. But he never thought that there would be a time limit in this trial ground. In particular, after this period of time he might not be able to return to the hidden immortal continent. This was a huge price to pay. Damn it, the light beast said that this place is not only a void but also a void labyrinth. This Xiao got lost on the land, wouldn't this Xiao become a headless fly in the void? How would this Xiao know where to go? Xiaohua was really at his wit's end. Should I go or not? But this void is just a void. What is a void labyrinth? The void. Thinking of this, Xiaohua suddenly smiled. Damn it, it's not like this Xiao hasn't been to the void before. This Xiao has also used the devil world's concealing technique more than once or twice. So what if I go take a look now? At worst, if I see that the situation is not right, I will quickly retreat. Moreover, if this Xiao is lucky, I might be able to encounter a void storm as soon as I enter this void. It seemed that Xiaohua was unable to resist the temptation of getting rid of this burden. He was eager to give it a try. Step by step he stepped in front of the black hole. Xiaohua tried to release his divine sense. Fortunately, divine sense was also useful in the void, but it was suppressed very badly. Rumble, following the flash of green light between Xiaohua's eyebrows, the two green seal characters, thunder and lightning, rushed into the void. Layers of lightning and thunder also appeared, but the power was a lot weaker than that of the hidden immortal continent. Good, since he saw that the lightning flashes, thunder rolls and telekinesis were all effective, Xiaohua's courage was naturally boosted. He no longer acted like a cowardly little wife as he arrogantly stepped into the black hole. But how could he know that just as he entered the void, the flames around his body immediately extinguished as if they had met ice water? Damn it, Xiaohua almost lost his voice. He hastily looked left and right. Seeing that there was no one around, he felt relieved. He immediately took out his robe and put it on. After Xiaohua put on his robe, he looked up and unconsciously became stunned. Xiaohua revealed his body in the black hole. Unfortunately, there was no one nearby, so it could not be said that he was exposed. Of course, in Xiaohua's opinion, apart from the light beast, who else would know about this kind of secret place? But unfortunately, there was nothing absolute in this world. On the other side of the void maze where Xiaohua had yet to see its true appearance, a faint clear light suddenly appeared in the darkness. That clear light flashed and then a ray of light was left in the void. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, that ray of light gradually became longer and wider. When this ray of light was half an inch wide and half a foot long, an even more intense golden light suddenly blossomed in this ray of light. With a schwa sound like silk being torn apart, that golden light streaked across the void and unexpectedly created a 1 zhang long crack. Moreover, that golden light flickered and quickly blocked the crack. Immediately after, 2 slender white hands appeared in this crack. They were as gentle as a spring breeze caressing one's face, but also as vigorous as a tiger tearing apart a leopard. Between the combination of movement and stillness, this crack was actually torn open by these 2 hands. Borrowing the light from outside the void, a well-built fair-skinned man wearing golden armor and a purple gold crown appeared. This man's eyebrows were like mountains, abnormally thick and black. His pair of tiger-like eyes contained no fear. At this moment, the 2 hands that could tear apart the void had already been retracted. His left hand hung at his waist, and a misty blue mirror floated in midair between his thumb and index finger. His right hand held a 3-pointed, double-edged sword that was as thick as a duck egg. The tip of the sword flashed with a golden brilliance. This man's eyes revealed a trace of pleasant surprise. He raised his left hand and the mirror flew in front of him. His fair-skinned left hand grabbed the mirror, and then the man spat out a 3-colored brilliance from his mouth. Buzz buzz. The mirror began to emit a misty blue brilliance. Go. The man's 5 fingers touched the back of the mirror. Woo. The clear light brewing on the mirror rushed into the crack in the void and disappeared extremely far away. Sure enough, it's a stable spatial node. A trace of joy appeared on the man's face, and then he put away the mirror in his hand. He took out a green ink cloud eye and placed it on his forehead. As the ink cloud eye flashed with intense light, the man's eyes slowly turned. Once the ink cloud eye returned to its original state, the man smiled. Hee, this old man has searched for this place for 100 years. Today I've finally gotten what I wanted. If the ink cloud eye is correct, then the void-penetrating beast should be here. Once I obtain the void-penetrating beast, I can cultivate the heavenly eye. This heavenly eye ability is even more formidable than the Buddhist sect's heavenly eye. After he finished speaking, the man also put away the ink cloud eye. The three-pointed, double-edged blade in his hand danced in front of him, and his figure flew towards the crack in the void. The void was pitch black, but the purple gold crown on the man's head emitted a misty golden light that protected the man's body. The golden light from the golden chainmail was even more eye-catching in the void. Out, the man stood in the void and coldly looked around. After which he pointed his hand. As he raised his finger, the mirror that he had just put away flew out again. As the man spat out a mouthful of true qi, the mirror began to emit a dense clear light once more. However, this time the clear light didn't rush out of the mirror. Instead, it rolled on the surface of the mirror, forming layers of ripples. Clear. The man opened his mouth again and a stream of air appeared in the void. This stream of air blew onto the mirror and the clear light quickly withdrew. After that, as the man lowered his head, all he saw was a patch of gray on the mirror. He couldn't see anything. Seeing the mirror like this, the man's expression didn't change at all. It was as if this was a matter of course. After carefully looking at it for a moment, the man took a deep breath and bit the tip of his tongue. With a poof, a mouthful of true qi that contained traces of true qi was spat onto the mirror. As the strands of blood fell, the entire mirror turned blood red, and then the mirror flew up from his hand. It spun around and charged towards a certain place in the void. Tens of thousands of strands of light rushed out from the mirror and disappeared into the void. Quick. The man actually pointed his finger like a Tao sect cultivator when he saw the blood-red color of the treasure mirror gradually disappear. The treasure mirror fell from a high place and landed in the man's hand. When the man lowered his head to take a look, he saw that the surface of the mirror was actually covered in densely packed veins. They appeared like cracks on glass or like the messy branches on a large tree. When the man's gaze fell on these meridians, he saw that about 20% of them were swaying left and right and changing at any time. His expression changed greatly and he cried out involuntarily, Isn't this a stable space node? Why is there such a passage inside? These passages are also so easily changing. Where am I supposed to find a void-penetrating beast? After hesitating for the time it took to smoke a cigarette, the man opened his mouth again and spat out another stream of true qi. Unfortunately, although the clear light on the mirror was overflowing, the range that the mirror could see was still limited. Chapter 3376. Forget it. Seems like I can only find the whereabouts of the void beasts by entering this strange space node. As he spoke, the man once again took out his treasured mirror. A wisp of clear light emerged from the treasured mirror and shone at the place where the man had just entered. It condensed into a ball of light that was the same color as water. After doing this, the man finally felt relieved and put away his treasured mirror. He waved the three-pointed double-edged sword in his hand and a golden light appeared out of thin air. The man took advantage of this light that had yet to disappear and rushed into the depths of the void. Xiaohua naturally didn't know that there was another person besides the three light beasts and himself in this labyrinth. He just stood in the void in a daze. That's right, a kind of indescribable familiar feeling emerged from his heart. The skin and flesh under the Taoist robe felt endless comfort, as if his hometown should be in this void. Strange. Xiaohua scratched his head. He really didn't understand. Previously, no matter if it was Xiaoyu continent or hidden immortal continent, when this Xiao used the demon realm's concealment technique, this Xiao didn't encounter such a situation? This void is obviously difficult to enter. Not only can I not find the direction, it's also impossible to find any clues. How could this Xiao have come here before? Of course, this was only a kind of frightening feeling. Xiaohua's naked eye and divine sense couldn't see the so-called void labyrinth. He didn't even know what was one zhang away from him. Open, Xiaohua pondered for a bit. The green light between his eyebrows flashed again and the illusion breaker magic eye that was completely similar to the naked eye opened. See. Just like that man, Xiaohua once again sucked in a breath of cold air. Because Xiaohua also saw a stretch of grayish-white color. Other than grayish-white, it was grayish-white, there was no other color. It was even more impossible to find the so-called direction. Damn it, isn't this going to die? Xiaohua frowned. There are no markings at all, how can I go? This is more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. Moreover, where is the labyrinth that the light beast spoke of? Since the illusion breaker magic eye didn't have any effect, Xiaohua simply closed it. Looking with the naked eye, all he could see was pitch black. It was no different from a starless night. Xiaohua was like a lost sheep, he stood there helplessly. He wanted to go somewhere else to find his goal of happiness, but he was afraid that if he went too far he would be even further away from his goal. Let's try it first. He couldn't just wait here forever. I only have 3 days. Xiaohua thought for a moment and released his divine sense. He used the secret technique of the sun-shrouding art to leave behind a divine sense mark in the void. He then activated the flight talisman and slowly flew into the distance. There wasn't any heaven and earth spiritual qi in the air, so Xiaohua couldn't use any Taoist magic arts. In just a moment the true qi in his body was exhausted. Fortunately, in addition to the Taoist flying technique, Xiaohua also knew the Soul Cultivator's flying technique. However, in this vast world, the Soul Cultivator's flying technique was far inferior to the Taoist flying technique. Xiaohua had almost never used it. However, in this place Soul Cultivators were the best candidates for flight. After flying for a while, Xiaohua frowned. Looking left and right at the unchanging void, an indescribable feeling arose in his heart. Just like in the night, although he couldn't see the direction clearly and didn't know where he was going, his intuition told him that he was very close to home. It was as if the smell of home had already drifted to his nose. Xiaohua's eyes turned a few times, then he turned around and flew in the direction of his left hand. After flying for half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua stopped and looked at his left hand with an inconceivable expression. Because he clearly felt that the place he was looking at should be where his divine sense was. Pu Ting Ting, Xiaohua's little heart couldn't help but madly jump. For Xiaohua, who had no sense of direction, this was simply a kind of earth-shattering ecstasy. He had never felt such a wonderful sense of direction so clearly before. Almost without thinking, he closed his eyes and flew in the direction of his heart. After waiting for half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua opened his eyes again. Astonishingly, the void gate that the light beast had torn open was right in front of Xiaohua's eyes. Great! Xiaohua let out a long sigh of relief, sincerely convinced. The heavenly Tao has always been fair to the people of the world. Although this Xiao is a cultivator in terms of direction, I can't even compare to a mortal. However, when the heavenly Tao closed this door to this Xiao's direction, it opened another window for this Xiao. This Xiao can actually easily find the direction in the void. Void, there is no such thing as direction, but in this Xiao's eyes, it is like taking a leisurely stroll. Forget it, the heavenly Tao is really not unkind to this Xiao. That's right, Xiaohua had always been able to find the way. In everyone's eyes, this was inconceivable. However, who would have thought that in this void that no one could pass through, Xiaohua could also clearly sense the direction without relying on any magical ability? It was really inconceivable. Io. Xiaohua gathered himself and happily flew towards a place in the void. Suddenly he thought of something. That's right, this Xiao's phoenix celestial body seems to have fallen into the void. Could it be, this is the effect of the celestial body? Immediately after, Xiaohua hurriedly raised his gaze and looked into the distance. He really wanted to see if he could find his lost phoenix celestial body in the void. Unfortunately, he naturally looked through the autumn water and did not see anything in the shape of a phoenix. Other than pitch black, there was only pitch black. It was as if this pitch black was the main theme of the void. Where did the phoenix celestial body go? Could it be, it is no longer in the void? Xiaohua's heart moved, suddenly giving birth to an inconceivable thought. Could it be that he has some other opportunity? Forget it, even if there is some opportunity, it is this Xiao's. The more opportunity he has, the happier this Xiao is. Xiaohua smiled until his eyes narrowed, almost humming a little tune. After flying for a while, Xiaohua suddenly turned his head. He really did not dare to believe that he could actually fly in such a straight line in the void without changing direction at all. Of course, Xiaohua himself was already certain. He could not help but fly straight back. When he saw a bean-sized light in the distance in the pitch-black darkness, Xiaohua finally confirmed that he was not mistaken. That was the location of the void gate. Only then did he turn around and fly forward with peace of mind. Since he had this kind of innate divine ability, Xiaohua's previous hesitation had already been dispelled. The void maze that was regarded as dangerous in the eyes of the light beast was probably not too frightening in his eyes. After flying like this for about the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua suddenly stopped and raised his head. Those star-like eyes gave birth to two strands of faint crimson red as he looked in one direction. An indescribable fear rose from the bottom of his heart. Almost without thinking, he hurriedly flew downwards. Just as he was flying, a fingernail-sized red dot suddenly appeared in the void. This red dot flashed and turned into a several zhang-wide vortex. Within the vortex, a crimson flame surged like a mountain flood, completely enveloping the void where Xiaohua was. Run! Xiaohua was greatly shocked. That flame was extremely strange. Before it could reach Xiaohua, that heat that caused the space to distort had already turned the Taoist robe that Xiaohua had just put on into nothingness. A scorching heat that was even more painful than being cut by a knife immediately spread from his skin. Although Xiaohua had already practiced the fire escape technique and his body had also been baptized by the fire origin, he was still far from reaching the level of being impervious to fire. In particular, this flame was different from all the flames that Xiaohua had seen before. There was not a single thread of flame, and the shape of the flame was actually liquid. Moreover, the liquid was abnormally sparkling and translucent, extremely similar to the scarlet ripples of water. Although this flame was condensed into a liquid state, it was filled with berserk energy. Even in the void, it was still exceptionally rampant. As the fiery water flowed past, the void was completely dyed crimson. Damn it, is this water or fire? Ouch, this is bad. Xiaohua clearly felt the stabbing pain on his back growing increasingly larger. He knew that his injury was not light, but his flying speed was simply unable to increase. Almost without thinking, Xiaohua waved his hand and threw a dozen fire talismans on his back. With a few muffled rumbles, the incomparably powerful fireballs of Hidden Immortal Continent and Dawn Rain Continent were actually not much stronger than firecrackers in the void. However, fortunately, when the wave of air rushed over, it forced Xiaohua to retreat several zhang away. Moreover, the fire talisman's fireballs and the strange water flow formed a kind of buffer for a short period of time. Xiaohua's back unexpectedly gave birth to a kind of cool feeling. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over and unconsciously trembled with fear. Because in just an instant his back was already charred black. It seemed like the majority of his skin was scorched. Using his hand to touch it, it was hard, different from the usual roasted meat. Could it be that this is magma? Xiaohua looked at the water flow that was obviously in a liquid state, but the temperature was also unbelievably high. He was extremely bewildered. The splashes of water were as transparent as colored glass, very beautiful. Seeing that the splashes of water were so strange, Xiaohua did not dare to use any fire escape technique. No. I must escape from this water flow. Otherwise, I will definitely be burned to death by this water flow. The fear in Xiaohua's heart had already reached an incomparable level. He hastily ran into the fire. Because of his nervousness, other than the fact that his back was already scorched, many goosebumps appeared on the rest of his body. Unfortunately, the situation was too urgent. Just as he thought of escaping, the strange water flow had already completely swallowed the flame produced by the fire talismans. That kind of feeling of being roasted on fire gradually emerged again. At this moment, Xiaohua did not have time to regret. He once again touched and threw out a handful of fire talismans. With great effort, he once again rushed forward several zhang. However, this time Xiaohua had already learned well. While rushing forward, he used ethereal steps and slightly leaned to the left. Clearly, he wanted to escape from the envelopment of the water flow. Chapter 3377. All of a sudden, Xiaohua sensed a large amount of Jin Qi being generated from his back. He carefully checked his back and found out that the Jin Qi came from his burnt skin. Under the high temperature of the water, the earth crystal Yao milk had been turned into natural power. Xiaohua was overjoyed and hurriedly tried to guide the natural energy into his meridians. Unfortunately, the surface of his burnt body did not have the earth crystal Yao milk, but the meridians inside his body were still blocked by the earth crystal Yao milk. The natural energy simply could not enter his dantian. Everything that Xiaohua did was useless. Helpless, Xiaohua could only channel most of the natural energy into his body and try his best to resist the burning of the strange water flow. The remaining natural energy was then guided into his meridians to be refined and turned into a little bit of magic power. After checking again for less than half a cup of tea, the fire talismans Xiaohua refined were already used up, and the strange water flow did not seem to weaken at all. Even after flying for a long time, Xiaohua still could not escape from the range of the water flow. Fortunately, there's only about 3 meters left, Xiaohua thought to himself as he glanced at the distance. Even if Xiaohua's cultivation was not at its peak, he could still fly over this 10 feet distance in a moment. But now this 10 feet was the difference between life and death. If Xiaohua could fly out of this 10 feet distance, he would be able to escape from the sudden water flow. If he could not fly out, he would really die in this void. The water flow behind Xiaohua was more turbulent than a mountain torrent. It chased after Xiaohua's but and seemed like it would soon annihilate him. Rise, although Xiaohua was somewhat flustered, his expression was still calm. He formed a Buddhist seal and the innate primordial water in the clear water bottle suddenly rushed out. Since Xiaohua obtained the innate primordial water, every time he used it, it would succeed. Whether it was the morning rain continent or the hidden immortal continent, there were no magic treasures or imperial tools that could block it. But this was Xiaohua's last resort. Just as it turned into a water curtain and covered Xiaohua's body, Xiaohua's almost half-burnt back felt a chill. Pa pa pa, a burst of sound like beans being fried continuously rushed into Xiaohua's ears. When Xiaohua's divine sense swept over, his face turned pale. Under the strange water flow, every drop of the innate primordial water suddenly turned into fist-sized bubbles. These bubbles admittedly blocked the water flow, but when the water flowed over, these bubbles burst one after another. The sweeping power of the water flow was not blocked at all. I was wrong, very wrong. Xiaohua almost instantly recalled that when he had just entered the void, he had tried to use the lightning flash and thunder roll technique. Now he was extremely regretful and said, "In this void, the most important thing is how to protect yourself, not how to attack." Even someone as strong as the light beast was injured in the void, so how could this Xiao be spared? Having a few more means of self-protection was the only way to enter the void. How can I attack? Unfortunately, what was the use of regret and understanding at this point? Being able to escape was the best plan. In this kind of situation, Xiaohua did not have much magic power. Even if he did, how could he dare to use the water escape technique that he had just comprehended? He was afraid that before he could use it, he would be roasted by the high temperature of the water flow. I don't know if the spiritual fire can subdue this water flow. Xiaohua thought of his previous strongest method. But now Xiaohua's magic power was insufficient, so he could not release the spiritual fire. What methods does the Buddhist sect have? Xiaohua hurriedly thought carefully. What methods can soul cultivators have? At this time Xiaohua was somewhat scratching his ears and cheeks. He regretted that he did not have enough knowledge when it was time to use it. Fire carpet? Or clear water bottle? Xiaohua once again thought of several magic treasures that were practically unusable. However, as soon as these thoughts appeared, they were forcefully strangled to death by him. Xiaohua shook his head, trying his best to expel some unrealistic thoughts. Then he looked at the void that was already beginning to distort, and a green light flashed between his eyebrows. When the words thunder and lightning appeared in the air, layers of lightning appeared out of thin air, forming a net of lightning behind Xiaohua. It forcefully blocked the foreign flames that had already touched Xiaohua's skin and burned several inches of Xiaohua's back. Now is the time. Xiaohua clenched his teeth and waved his hand. A flight talisman fell on his body. The true qi that had just been generated in his meridians rushed into the flight talisman. Whoosh! Xiaohua's figure suddenly sped up, rushing out of the range of the water flow like a stray dog. Xiaohua's lightning and thunder technique was admittedly powerful, and the net of lightning was admittedly tough. But in the face of the water flow that was wreaking havoc in the void, it was like child's play. In just a few seconds, all the lightning was swallowed by the water flow. Of course, what Xiaohua wanted was this few seconds. In this short period of time, Xiaohua had already rushed out a distance of nearly 1 zhang, and was about to fly out of the range of the water flow. But at this moment a strange change occurred. Xiaohua's rapidly rushing figure suddenly stopped, and even in the blink of an eye he bounced back in an extremely unreasonable manner, rushing into the range of the water flow as if he was pushed back by someone. Damn it! Xiaohua, who had once again fallen into a dangerous situation, didn't have time to think. A green light appeared between his eyebrows again and layers of lightning appeared again. His figure didn't dare to randomly fly to the side, and his face was even more ashen. I finally understand why that damned light beast called this a void maze. Xiaohua almost shouted in his heart because just when he was about to escape from the range of the water flow, he seemed to have hit an incomparably solid wall, and that wall was the edge of the void. In other words, the left side of Xiaohua's current location was the boundary between the void and the continent. If Xiaohua could shatter the void, he would be able to escape from here. Unfortunately, Xiaohua didn't have the ability to shatter the void, and even if he did, the water flow behind him wouldn't give him the time. Xiaohua panicked, and just as he was about to escape towards his right side, the water flow had already broken through the lightning and pounced on Xiaohua again. Xiaohua turned his head to look at the surging water flow in a panic, and saw that the water flow was like a fire dragon chasing after him, and didn't want to spread in all directions. He suddenly realized, damn it, this seems to be a path in the maze, right? This water flow is just like the water in the maze, only rushing along this path, and I'm precisely on this path, and my flying speed can't compare to the flood. If I don't have a place to hide, I'll be swept away by the flood sooner or later. Rumble. The helpless Xiaohua released the lightning again, and used his hand to slap his forehead and shouted, "Open!" When the delusion breaker eye opened, a feeling of powerlessness mixed with despair spread out in Xiaohua's heart. Because what the delusion breaker eye saw was a several zhang-wide passage, and this passage seemed to have no end. Looking further in the distance at the side of the passage, there were streaks of light as thin as spider silk wantonly circling around like seaweed in water. And within these streaks of light, there were streaks of light like ripples, emitting different colors of brilliance as they circled around. Needless to say, these streaks of light were probably the same as the passage Xiaohua was in right now. Space vein. Instantly Xiaohua almost blurted out. Wasn't this the space vein that Zhang Qingxiao was talking about? Those different streaks of light were different kinds of spiritual energy, and the strange water flow behind him was rushing into the void from an unknown plane. Thinking of this, even if Xiaohua had the ability to break through the void, he probably wouldn't dare to casually break through. Who knew what plane was outside the void? Who knew what was inside that plane? Knowing that he was in a dangerous situation, Xiaohua was even more helpless. Apart from using the lightning flash and thunder roll technique while using the delusion breaker eye to escape, he really didn't have any other methods. But even this method of struggling at death's door was ineffective in just a moment. Because every time Xiaohua used the lightning flash and thunder roll technique, he could block the torrent of flames, but every time it was destroyed by the torrent of flames, the momentum of the torrent of flames would increase a bit, and when it encountered the lightning net again, the lightning net would be able to block the torrent of flames for a bit less time. After a dozen or so times, the lightning net was easily destroyed by the torrent of flames, and could no longer resist the torrent of flames. Is this Xiao going to die here? Xiaohua's heart was like dead ashes. Looking at the endless passage and the torrent of flames behind him that was even more ruthless and fierce than a deity transformation cultivator, Xiaohua was already in a desperate situation. If I die, can my soul enter the space? Can my space still exist? If it can, this Xiao can also accompany Shui and Master. Unfortunately, this was all wishful thinking on Xiaohua's part. How could he know if the space would be intact after he died? This gamble was too big, so big that he didn't dare to try. Over there. Yes, it's over there. At this moment, Xiaohua's already exhausted transcendence vision suddenly saw a dark green brilliance about 10 feet away from the edge of the passage. This brilliance was extremely dim, and if Xiaohua hadn't been in a daze and stopped his transcendence vision there, he wouldn't have been able to see it. If it's a cave, that would be great. Xiaohua's heart gave birth to a fluke, and he hoped that the place where the brilliance was located was a normal cave. However, even if that cave was a cave and was a safe place, with Xiaohua's current flying speed, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to reach that place. Crack crack crack. Xiaohua once again released lightning, but this time, all the lightning was instantly destroyed by the torrent of flames, and it didn't show any effect at all. At the same time, Xiaohua waved his hand and took out the fire carpet that he hadn't used before. He activated it with his remaining true qi, causing the fire carpet to suddenly expand and cover the space behind Xiaohua. It was like a checkpoint that blocked the passage to the void. Chapter 3378. This fire carpet was originally damaged and Xiaohua had never refined it again. The only reason he used it now was because he wanted it to block the torrent of water. Of course, Xiaohua didn't place too much hope on the fire carpet. With a flip of his hand he took out the fire bottle that he had never used before. Although his heart was pained at the loss of the innate fire and other things, he couldn't care about it at this time. He only left some in the space as a backup and sent out the rest. Xiaohua even held a few worn-out magic tools in his hand. He was going to casually throw them out when there was a gap. Sure enough, as Xiaohua expected, the fire carpet blocking the passage was like a rag. With a rumbling sound, it was broken by the water flow. However, the moment it broke, the flames inside the fire carpet and the remaining arrays blocked the water flow. Crackle. A very strange sound like an old farmer chopping firewood was heard. The flames really did block the water flow for a few breaths. In the span of a few breaths, Xiaohua had flashed out another 3 meters or so. Damn it, not to mention the lightning escape. Even if it was the flowing cloud movement technique, as long as I could use one of them, I wouldn't be in such a difficult situation. Xiaohua even had the heart to die. This flying speed that was slower than a snail was really dragging him into the abyss of death step by step. The water flow was naturally followed by the fire bottle. Seeing the fire bottle suddenly turn into water flow, even worse than the fire carpet, Xiaohua's heart turned cold. He was about to wave the magic tool in his hand. Boom. With a loud sound, an explosion more powerful than the explosion of dozens of fire talismans suddenly erupted from the place where the fire flask disappeared. At the same time, a strong airflow was produced. This airflow, along with that long-lost happiness, suddenly submerged Xiaohua. Xiaohua's figure was sent several feet away by this airflow. That dark green brilliance was already very close to him, and Xiaohua could already see that this dark green brilliance was produced by a collapsed pit. Although he didn't know what was inside this collapsed pit, but could there be a fate more tragic than falling into a fiery stream of water? Xiaohua hastily urged the flying talisman to rush towards the collapse. However, just as Xiaohua approached the collapse, a scarlet radiance that was half a step faster than Xiaohua blocked the front of the collapse. This water curtain of brilliance was precisely caused by the explosion of the fire bottle. Coincidentally, it blocked Xiaohua's escape route. Does the heavens want me dead? Xiaohua looked at the nearly 1 zhang wide water curtain that was blocking the collapse, and behind him the surging current had already caught up to him, but it was only about 50 to 60 zhang away. If he hesitated for even a moment, he would definitely suffer a calamity. Go! Xiaohua did not dare to pass through the water curtain, and without any hesitation he threw the few broken magic weapons in his hands into it. Puff puff puff. Several soft noises rang out, and these magic treasures really did explode in the water curtain, blasting open a hole that wasn't too big nor too small. And at this time the flood had already chased down Xiaohua's left arm, and a feeling like his flesh was being cut was born there. At this time Xiaohua also did not want to pass through the water curtain, and wondered if his handsome face would still be in good condition. Faster than a rabbit he rushed into the already shrinking hole in the water curtain. Woo! The water curtain disappeared and Xiaohua did not have enough time to dodge. The layer of skin on his buttocks that was still outside the collapse also disappeared at the same time. That heart-piercing pain was merciless. Wave after wave after wave, came from all over Xiaohua's body. Pain and luck. This was the only feeling Xiaohua had after escaping from death. If it was not for him being able to use his transcendence vision to see such a small collapse in the void passage, and if it was not for the fire carpet, fire bottle and other items that helped him escape, how could he have possibly escaped from the flood of destruction? However, without waiting for Xiaohua to use his grief as a tongue to lick the pain in his body and heart, the dark green brilliance in the collapsed area suddenly flourished. Within the brilliance, countless tiny dots of light the size of soybeans appeared. These dots of light rapidly rotated, and all of a sudden Xiaohua felt that the sky and earth were spinning. Moreover, the strange thing was, after these dots of light were born, there were some faintly discernible thin threads between them. These thin threads were gray in color and firmly trapped Xiaohua. Not to mention magic power, even his body could not move in the slightest. Xiaohua turned pale with fright. Just as he was about to struggle, the brilliance in the collapsed area was annihilated again. Following the disappearance of the brilliance, the completely gray thin threads disappeared into the void, and Xiaohua naturally disappeared along with them. The collapsed area was like a shriveled fish bubble filled with water. It swelled up from the inside and slowly disappeared. And in the distance inside the void passage, the scarlet tail could be seen and gradually disappeared. No one knew where the tyrannical flood of fire went and who it harmed. Xiaohua felt that the sky and earth were spinning. The brilliance in front of his eyes overflowed, and all of a sudden, he felt an indescribable sense of disgust. Before he could close his eyes, his body became light, and the huge binding force had already disappeared. However, his eyes and mind were still shaking like mountains and seas, unable to calm down for a long time. For no less than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Xiaohua kept his eyes closed. He did not release his divine sense, nor did he open his Dharma eyes. He simply kept his eyes closed. The struggle just now was really dangerous. If he was the slightest bit careless, he would have died. Moreover, at this moment Xiaohua's entire body was covered in scars. Although he could not smell the fragrance of roasted meat from his mouth and nose, Xiaohua believed that as long as he cut a piece of meat from his body, it would be fragrant. In the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Xiaohua's heart gradually calmed down, and he immediately opened his eyes. However, he saw that his eyes were still pitch black and he still could not see any brilliance. It was as calm as when he had just entered the void. Looking at this calm void, Xiaohua slightly raised his head, as if he was looking at the sky, and the corners of his mouth revealed a rare confident smile. This was because he had already felt the correct direction with his naked eyes. Somewhere high up in the sky was where he had entered the void. If he wanted to, he could fly there right now. The so-called collapse seemed to be just a small passage in the vein of space. Through this collapse, Xiaohua did not arrive at any boundary, but instead arrived at another passage in the void. In other words, Xiaohua was still in the void maze. Thinking about this, Xiaohua patted his forehead and prepared to open his Dharma eyes. He wanted to use his heavenly eye connection to check the situation of the nearby space. But suddenly, a kind of vigilance rose from the bottom of his heart again. Xiaohua did not hesitate to enter the space. The place where Jade Archive Xiaohua appeared was a barren area of space. At this time, this barren space was emitting a thick black flame. This black flame flowed along the ground in all directions, emitting an extremely unpleasant burnt smell. Sigh. Jade Archive Xiaohua sighed and grabbed at the black flame with his hand. A crimson brilliance illuminated the area within 100 miles, and a crimson drop of water flashed with an extremely intense heat wave as Jade Archive Xiaohua pulled it out from the ground. This drop of water was precisely the drop of water that Xiaohua had created when he passed through the water curtain. When the torrent of water had washed away the water curtain, this drop of water had penetrated Xiaohua's arm, and was sent into the space by Xiaohua's mind. However, Xiaohua did not expect this drop of water to be so powerful. The ground of his space could not bear it at all. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, it had actually sunk more than 1,000 feet into the ground and there was no end to it. If Jade Archive Xiaohua had not grabbed it, perhaps the space would have been penetrated by it. Even when the drop of water fell into Jade Archive Xiaohua's hand, a circle of distorted ripples appeared from Jade Archive Xiaohua's hand, as if Jade Archive Xiaohua's hand was also burned by the drop of water. Jade Archive Xiaohua looked at the water droplet in his hand. His eyes, which were as silver as the starry sky, flashed with a strange light. After another half a cup of tea, Jade Archive Xiaohua raised his head. His gaze fell on the strange inkstone on the left side of tracing light. Quick, Jade Archive Xiaohua reached out with his right hand, and a stream of lightning water flowed down from the inkstone and landed in front of Jade Archive Xiaohua. Poof! Jade Archive Xiaohua gently blew on it, and the lightning water immediately turned a strange color. The surrounding space began to distort, and in the blink of an eye, something that looked like a jade box was born from the lightning. Go, Jade Archive. Xiaohua stretched out his hand, and the drop of water fell into the box formed by the lightning water. This box was also transparent, and when the drop of water fell into it, the lightning water on the surface of the box was stirred up like steam by the drop of water, producing countless tiny lightning threads. However, when the lightning threads rose to the top of the box, they met another lightning water, and the lightning threads fell into the lightning water, disappearing instantly. This cycle repeated over and over again, and the box created by the lightning water actually imprisoned the water droplet within. Good, Jade Archive, Xiaohua praised. After which, he pointed with his finger and the box formed by lightning water fell into the hole that the water droplet had penetrated. When the box fell into the hole, the black flames that had just flowed out flowed back into the hole. In a short moment, everything returned to its original state. Fellow Taoist. Jade Archive. Xiaohua looked around and called out softly. Green-robed. Xiaohua answered, and although there was no expression on his face, there was a hint of complaint in his voice. Fellow Taoist, this is our home all. Why did you send everything in here? I don't know if this thing is water or fire, but it seems to be able to destroy space. Aren't you afraid of any future troubles by leaving it here? Fellow Taoist, don't panic. Jade Archive. Xiaohua smiled and said, you also saw it. Although the torrent is powerful, this is only a small drop of water after all. Compared to our lightning water, it is still a bit inferior. Now that it has been absorbed into the lightning water, if you find any abnormalities with it, immediately inform I, and I will send it out. You're really a guy who would rather injure your mind to take advantage of others. In the future when you meet other people, don't say that you know I. Green-robed. Xiaohua's mouth slightly curled and he looked very stiff. Hehe, Jade Archive. Xiaohua naturally knew that green-robed Xiaohua was mocking him for his mind being injured by the drop of water when he received it, and said, our bodies were burned to pieces by this water, and if we didn't get some benefits from the water, I'm afraid that you and I wouldn't be able to sleep well, right? I did this for everyone's sake. Chapter 3379. Don't tell me it's because of your greed and stinginess? The green-robed Xiaohua mocked. The Jade Archive. Xiaohua didn't refute. He stretched out his hand and said, fellow Taoist, do you have any healing spirit pills? Take some out. Let's not talk about my hair, it's already gone. The scars on my body need to be cleaned up. Don't ruin my handsome face. I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you. I've already prepared them. The green-robed Xiaohua waved his hand and several jade bottles appeared in front of the Jade Archive. Xiaohua. It's just that this thing that's neither fire nor water is very strange. I don't know if these spirit pills are useful. Many thanks, fellow Taoist. The Jade Archive. Xiaohua took the jade bottles and cupped his hands. I'll try them first. At this moment the Jade Archive. Xiaohua frowned and his expression changed slightly. It seemed that there was another change outside the space. Please. The green-robed Xiaohua raised his hand. The Jade Archive. Xiaohua didn't answer and disappeared in a flash. The green-robed Xiaohua stared blankly at the place where the thunder water box disappeared. A burst of starlight appeared in his eyes and then he also disappeared. The Jade Archive. Xiaohua came out of the space and hurriedly looked around. However, he saw that the surroundings were still pitch black and there was no special change. Moreover, when Xiaohua used the Heaven's Eye technique again and opened his magic eye, he saw a faint light on the left side. He didn't see any special brilliance. The passage he saw with his magic eye just now also disappeared. His left side was very wide as if he was in a quiet grassland. Strange. Xiaohua was a little bewildered in his heart, because after opening his Dharma eye, that ominous feeling disappeared again. There's nothing special here. However, Xiaohua also knew that he was now in the void where the space vein was located. Although the void was stable, there was definitely danger. Although he didn't notice any abnormalities, it didn't mean that there was no danger. It was better to be careful. Thinking about it, Xiaohua took out the spirit pills refined by the green-robed Xiaohua. He swallowed a few and applied a few on his body. He felt some coolness coming from where he applied the medicine. Only then did Xiaohua apply the spirit pills all over his body. This time Xiaohua was in a miserable state. His whole body was riddled with scars. He had used up almost all of the spirit pills given by the green-robed Xiaohua. After applying the spirit pill, Xiaohua took out a Taoist robe and put it on. In the void, defensive treasures might not be useful, so it was better to keep them than waste them. The stingy Xiaohua calculated this well and only wore an ordinary Taoist robe. In fact, if Xiaohua didn't feel awkward in his heart, perhaps he wouldn't even want to wear this Taoist robe. After putting it on, Xiaohua carefully inspected his body. If he didn't inspect it, he wouldn't have known that his body, which he had always been proud of, was actually seriously injured this time. It wasn't just the superficial injuries that Xiaohua had imagined. Under his body, there was an extremely thick part that had turned into rotten wood. What was special was that this rotten wood-like body could actually make Xiaohua feel pain. Just by touching it with his hand, Xiaohua immediately grimaced in pain. The heavens really took pity on me. What is this water-like torrent? Xiaohua couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. It hadn't been long since he'd encountered the torrent and escaped from the spatial tunnel, yet he'd suffered such heavy injuries in such a short period of time. If the spatial tunnel hadn't collapsed, his ending would have been unimaginable. Of course, Xiaohua also knew that it wouldn't be strange if the radiant beast was seriously injured in the void. However, although Xiaohua was seriously injured, the injured part of the earth crystal Yao milk had turned into the world's spirit qi. The majority of this spirit qi was absorbed by his intact body, and a small part was absorbed by his meridians. Although this part of the earth crystal Yao milk was very small, it still made Xiaohua see hope. If it really was the void storm that the radiant beast said, it really could turn the remaining earth crystal Yao milk into the world's spirit qi. But where is this void storm? Xiaohua raised his eyes to look at the pitch-black darkness in the distance, and once again urged the soul cultivator's flying technique to slowly fly forward. This time Xiaohua was much more vigilant. As he flew forward, he constantly opened his transcendence vision, looking left and right. From time to time he even tested the direction of the void that he just discovered. However, this time it was very quiet. For a full 4 hours he didn't see anything abnormal. But through Xiaohua's transcendence vision he saw nothing but a faint brilliance. Even the variegated brilliance of the previous void maze couldn't be seen. After a long time Xiaohua became a little anxious. He didn't have much time. If he couldn't find the passage of the void storm in 3 days, he would have to quickly leave. However, before he could think of any other way, suddenly in his body, pooh! A muffled sound rang out. A piece of flesh smaller than a sesame seed burst open, and the earth crystal Yao milk contained in this piece of flesh turned into pure spirit qi at the same time. This. Xiaohua was shocked. Just as he was about to use his divine sense to investigate, poo-piu-piu, 3 consecutive sounds rang out, and 3 more pieces of flesh burst open near that piece of flesh. Not good. Xiaohua's scalp immediately went numb. He suddenly thought of the warning signs he had when he first entered this void. Almost without thinking, he desperately flew in a direction. However, what happened next made Xiaohua tremble with fear. The flesh in his body burst open one after another. Although only small pieces of flesh burst open, these explosions seemed to be connected, and there were more and more of them. Perhaps there was no sound in the void, but in Xiaohua's mind, these explosions were no less than a bolt from the blue. There was nothing more frightening than this strange thing. Xiaohua not only released his divine sense, but also opened his transcendence vision. He even released his Buddhist sense and soul sense one after another. Unfortunately, apart from him, there was no one else in this void. There was no spirit qi of heaven and earth fluctuations and so on. A series of explosions caused Xiaohua's heart to skip a beat. Xiaohua's body had been tempered, his meridians had also been tempered, and even his bloodline had been tempered. However, the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, kidneys and so on in his body had not been tempered. Although his 5 viscera had been strengthened because of the tempering of his body and his bloodline, they were relatively weak. Although Xiaohua's powerful body was formed from Yao Feng's flesh and blood, his 5 viscera were the same. However, in this strange explosion, Xiaohua could not guarantee that his body was in good condition, let alone that his 5 viscera were safe. Especially when these strange explosions came from the inside. He had no idea how the other party attacked him. What the hell is going on? Xiaohua could only release his divine sense and do his best to check his surroundings. The transcendence vision in his transcendence vision was also opened wide. He carefully looked, wanting to find something strange. But it was clear that the development of the situation had once again exceeded Xiaohua's expectations. It was just a simple meal of cultivation techniques, but the sound of continuous explosions rang out from his body. His originally intact body was now like a beehive, and many parts of his body had already turned into blood stains. Pain was naturally necessary. Moreover, this pain did not only affect his body, it also affected Xiaohua's mind. His Tao foundation and primordial spirit were faintly injured. The stingy Xiaohua had never thought that there would be a day when he would have to abandon his body for his own life. However, just now he actually had the idea of cutting his wrist. He was prepared to abandon his body in the void at the last moment in exchange for a chance to escape. However, at this moment, the feeling of his primordial spirit told him that this was a dead end. Under this inexplicable attack, his body would completely explode, his primordial spirit and mind would no longer exist. He would be deader than dead. If he could not find the source of the explosion, if he could not find a way to solve it, he could only die. I just left the wolf's den and entered the tiger's den. Xiaohua thought fiercely in his heart. A feeling of unwillingness to submit grew in his heart. His heart that had been chased by the torrent of water earlier was now gradually becoming firm. I have always been a bit lazy. Previously, I relied on the auspicious jade talisman to obtain a lot of luck. In times of danger, I was always able to find an opportunity to escape. Now that the auspicious jade talisman is gone, my luck seems to have also disappeared. However, I still have some dependence in my heart. I feel that the heavens are still looking after me. This void is very dangerous. The light beast had clearly said that there was only a 9 out of 10 chance of survival. However, I barged in without even thinking about it. The torrent of water just now and the explosion now, which one of them is not strange? Which one of them can't easily take the life of an ordinary cultivator? Xiaohua, you have to wake up. From today onwards, don't slack off. You must rely on yourself for all the dangers. You must face them calmly. Xiaohua, who had calmed down, didn't say anything further. He first took out the innate real water to protect himself. However, although the innate real water's water curtain was formed, the explosions in his body were like beans being fried. Instead, they became even more violent. Xiaohua was so frightened that he hastily withdrew the innate real water. Strange. Xiaohua's mind spun rapidly. Why is it that the appearance of the real water is like pouring oil on fire? Although Xiaohua was at a loss, he still couldn't understand after thinking for a moment. Puff puff puff. The sounds of explosions became more and more intense. Currently, close to 10% of Xiaohua's body had turned into blood clots. Moreover, this kind of development seemed to be continuous. If Xiaohua didn't have any countermeasures, his entire body would become a pool of blood in less than a meal. Fellow Taoist, save me. A pitiful voice appeared in Xiaohua's mind. Needless to say, this was the voice that had fused with his body and primordial spirit. Xiaohua pondered for a moment and simply stood in the void. This kind of aimless flight would only consume his true qi and magic power. It was basically useless. When the Jade Archive entered Xiaohua's body, the demonic phoenix Xiaohua was no longer as arrogant as before. Not only did his entire demeanor look dispirited and listless, the entire phoenix shape was damaged by more than 10%. Even the 5 colors were abnormally dim. In particular, the 1300 and 205 colored spots actually showed signs of melting. Chapter 3380. Where is Dragon Vein Xiaohua? Jade Archive. Xiaohua's heart moved and he hurriedly called out. I am here, fellow Taoist, please. Along with Jade Archive Xiaohua's voice, the long dragon shape appeared in front of Xiaohua's eyes. At this time Dragon Vein Xiaohua still looked like a thin line, but this thin line was already extremely clear. It was a dragon shape. Not only were there flashing scales all over its body, even the head and horns of the dragon shape were revealed. When the dragon shape appeared, a golden light flashed and the dragon shape turned into the human shape of Xiaohua. Obviously, Dragon Vein Xiaohua must have obtained the essence of the fire dragon's soul before, which was why he was able to make such progress. Of course, Xiaohua did not have time to look at Dragon Vein Xiaohua's progress. He only asked, does fellow Taoist feel that something is wrong? A burning that can destroy all things. Dragon Vein Xiaohua also knew that the situation was urgent and directly answered. However, this is just the beginning. As time passes, I will not be able to resist. Very good, Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded. Does fellow Taoist know the reason? No. Fellow Taoist, please return. Jade Archive Xiaohua cupped his hands. After sending Dragon Vein Xiaohua off, he called out again, is the bone-honing fellow Taoist here? The bone-honing Xiaohua was naturally the primordial spirit that Xiaohua integrated into the bones and focused on tempering the bones. This primordial spirit was very important, and Xiaohua also knew that according to the image secret technique from Backtrack Time, it seemed that the key to light escape was not only related to the 5 elements escape technique, but also the tempering of the bones. Therefore he never called out to this primordial spirit and only let it focus on cultivation. At this time, at the moment of life and death, Xiaohua had no choice but to call it out. Unexpectedly, Jade Archive Xiaohua called out several times, but there was no response. This bone-honing primordial spirit seemed to be even more arrogant than green-robed Xiaohua and the others. It was actually not afraid of Jade Archive Xiaohua. Jade Archive Xiaohua was slightly angry. Lightning flashed between his eyes and he was about to fly towards the bones. Fortunately, at this time a voice louder than a bell rang out. Fellow Taoist, why are you looking for me? This voice sounded extremely simple and there was even a hint of contempt in the tone. Then a yellow light flashed and a burly man with an indomitable spirit appeared in front of Xiaohua. The Jade Archive Xiaohua seemed to be seeing Xiaohua's bone honing for the first time. He couldn't help but take a closer look. Compared to Jade Archive Xiaohua, who knew how many times larger this man was, his thick and solid hands and feet were simply like heavenly pillars that supported the heavens and earth. What was special was that there was a strong primordial aura coming from this man, and a feeling of indestructibility and eternity arose spontaneously. The man's appearance was exactly the same as Xiaohua's. Most of his body was earthy yellow in color and only his head was golden. That brilliant golden color was extremely dazzling, and there were strange runes swimming around his forehead. Welcome, fellow Taoist. Jade Archive Xiaohua looked at the incomparably huge bone-tempering Xiaohua and was extremely surprised in his heart. He didn't expect that this trace of primordial spirit would actually become like this. He cupped his hands and said, "You and I are originally one, why are you so arrogant? Now that our physical bodies are in danger of collapsing, if we don't solve it quickly, not to mention even the other fellow Taoists won't exist anymore, right?" Ha ha. The voice of bone-tempering Xiaohua resounded throughout the world. When the nest is overturned, there are no intact eggs, I know this. But the problem is, if this physical body doesn't recover, then it doesn't recover. What does it have to do with me? You and I are no longer here, but I will still be here. Moreover, the other fellow Taoists may not necessarily not be here, right? Forget it, I won't argue with you. Jade Archive Xiaohua knew that the situation was urgent, and he didn't want to be entangled with him. He hurriedly asked, "What good plan do you have in this situation?" "Nothing," bone-tempering Xiaohua said concisely. "I don't feel anything and I don't know how to deal with it. In the future, if there is nothing important, don't disturb my cultivation." After saying that, bone-tempering Xiaohua's body shone brightly and slowly disappeared into his bones. Damn it! Jade Archive Xiaohua almost cursed, but the crisis in his physical body didn't allow him to think too much. He hurriedly shouted again, "Where is the fellow Taoist in the bloodline?" Unfortunately, Jade Archive Xiaohua shouted several times. How could any primordial spirit answer? I'm dizzy, Jade Archive Xiaohua patted his forehead. The blood drop grotto heaven of the demon realm within his bloodline was the blood shadow technique, which had nothing to do with the primordial spirit. Where would any fellow Taoist appear? Without a choice, the Jade Archive Xiaohua returned. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. The sound of rain hitting a banana leaf could be heard. Countless pieces of flesh and blood were bursting out. This was even more dangerous than the previous torrent. Scorch, a scorch that can destroy all living things. What is this? Xiaohua's mind turned rapidly. And this Xiao's bones are not afraid. I'm stupid. Suddenly, the faint brilliance in the Dharma eye that opened suddenly attracted Xiaohua's attention. Xiaohua almost immediately understood. Isn't this the culprit that caused the explosion? This culprit has always been here, it's just that I didn't notice it. That's right, there was nothing in this void. This kind of faint, invisible brilliance. Although this brilliance didn't cause any harm at first, Who knew if it would cause harm to him after being in this brilliance for a long time? Wasn't this exactly the same as boiling a toad in warm water? When a toad was suddenly thrown into boiling water, the toad wouldn't be able to withstand the sudden heat and would immediately jump out of the boiling water to escape. When boiling a toad in warm water in the beginning, the toad wouldn't notice because of the heat. When the water became hotter and hotter, the toad would realize that it was about to be extinguished. He had seen all kinds of brilliance in this void. These brilliances wouldn't cause any harm to him, so he took it for granted that the brilliance in this void wouldn't cause any harm. But in fact, this brilliance that he was familiar with was the culprit that destroyed all things. Damn it, previously I was in pain all over and those injuries were on the surface. Perhaps this brilliance was harmful but I didn't notice it. Also, in order to heal my injuries, I applied a spiritual pill, which blocked the damage to the surface of the brilliance. Xiaohua immediately understood. But this brilliance can penetrate the surface of the body and cause harm to the depths of the body. That brilliance is even more powerful after passing through the innate primordial water. This is also the reason why innate primordial water is useless. Since Xiaohua knew the source of the danger, he naturally wanted to escape immediately. However, his Dharma eye was filled with this brilliance as if it was endless. Although Xiaohua didn't dare to think too much, he still flew in one direction. But obviously he didn't have enough time to rush out of the area covered by the brilliance. The basin used to boil Xiaohua was really too big. No, this won't do, Xiaohua thought as he flew. Although escaping from this area is a way to treat the root of the problem, I can't escape now. I can only find a way to treat the symptoms and stop my body from exploding. Although he wasn't afraid of that bullshit bone-tempering primordial spirit, I am. Who knows if my body can be regenerated after it explodes and my internal organs are gone. That's right, what do you mean by regenerate? However, Xiaohua didn't have time to think about the meaning of the word regenerate at this moment. He hurriedly thought about it again. It seemed that there wasn't this kind of effect in the Tao techniques he knew. Moreover, he didn't have enough transcendence energy, so it was even more impossible to think about it. Buddha Sarira. Xiaohua immediately thought of the Buddhist sect's cultivation and hurriedly sent the Buddha Sarira out of his Naiwan palace. What scared Xiaohua out of his wits was that the moment the Buddha Sarira flew out of his Naiwan palace, the golden surface of the Buddha Sarira immediately exploded violently. It was even weaker than the physical body. Xiaohua hurriedly sent the Buddha Sarira back. How could he still dare to use Buddhist methods? Lightning, flashing thunder, rolling thunder technique? Unfortunately, that thin lightning net was unable to block the brilliance at all. Xiaohua still dejectedly withdrew the green seal text. What should I do? Xiaohua's newly born ambition seemed to be about to be annihilated again. The saying that man could conquer the heavens seemed to be a joke. If he didn't have any methods, his soaring aspirations would be nothing more than a cloud of nothingness. Mirror, Kunlun mirror. A light flashed in Xiaohua's mind. He hurriedly took out the damaged Kunlun mirror and poured his remaining transcendence energy into it without hesitation. Sure enough, following the activation of transcendence energy, a faint beam of light immediately shot out of the mirror surface. This faint beam of light could only overflow half a foot from the mirror surface. However, Xiaohua's transcendence eyes could clearly see that the faint beam of light was swept away by the Kunlun mirror. Phew! Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief. Inside his body, the sound of beans being fried also slowly weakened. Seems like there is still some effect. Seeing this situation, Xiaohua was half happy and half worried. He was happy that he found a way to solve his current predicament, but he was worried that he didn't have the transcendence energy to support the Kunlun mirror, especially since his meridians were blocked. Even if he took some spirit pills and spirit fruits, it was impossible to change the world's spiritual energy into true qi. Isn't this asking for my life? Xiaohua sensed the rapidly disappearing transcendence energy. On one hand, he was like an ant on a hot pan. His brain had never been this anxious in the past 200 years. As time passed, Xiaohua also stopped flying. Because his transcendence energy was supporting the Kunlun mirror while supporting the flight technique, it was almost exhausted. He had no choice but to make a choice. Is there any other way to get more true qi? Is there any other way to block this light? Xiaohua thought and took out the Confucian robe and other defensive magic weapons to try, but they were all useless. At this time, A wisp of smoke in front of him attracted Xiaohua's attention. This wisp of smoke was extremely faint. In the pitch-black void, Transcendent's eyes couldn't see it at all. And if it wasn't for the light of the Kunlun mirror, the naked eye naturally couldn't see it. When Xiaohua noticed it, he found that the skin and flesh that had just been burned by the torrent had already been peeled off from his body. And when the charred flesh fell into the void, it immediately turned into smoke. It was the burning of all things that the dragon vein had mentioned before. Chapter 3381. Xiaohua was slightly disappointed when he saw this. However, just as his divine sense was about to leave, he suddenly discovered that the tiny wisp of blood that had left his flesh and blood had shrunk back into his body. It did not disappear in the light. Oh! Xiaohua was stunned. He immediately thought of something and hastily used his divine sense to examine his body. Sure enough, he saw that 20% of his body had already turned into blood. But strangely, the blood did not turn into smoke and disappear. This. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and hurriedly took out some water from the space. The moment the water touched the void, it immediately disappeared. It didn't even have time to emit smoke. Then Xiaohua poured some more water into the bloodstains. As Xiaohua expected, the brilliance could really pass through the body. The water was basically no different from the body. Blood-dripping paradise. Xiaohua felt as if he had come back from the jaws of death. At this moment, the Kunlun mirror flashed, and Xiaohua's surroundings fell into a kind of pitch-black silence. In this silence, no one knew that it was actually a killing trap. The light was invisible to the naked eye, and the divine sense and Buddhist sense were unable to detect it. Just like that, people were killed. A drop of blood, tens of thousands of lives. A paradise free and unfettered. I offer a drop of blood to the heavens in exchange for a paradise to descend. Xiaohua put away the Kunlun mirror. Continuous bursting sounds appeared around him. Xiaohua was no longer afraid. He opened his mouth and began to chant, "Blood-dripping paradise, I am the master. I use demonic blood to wash the blue sky. I am not afraid that my will not descend. Every drop is my body." Along with Xiaohua's chant, traces of demonic blood flashed. They were like tentacles and spider webs. They densely seeped out from his blood vessels. Then they penetrated his body and rushed out from the surface of his skin. This demonic blood contained countless black flames. The black flames flickered in the pitch-black void as if they were even darker than the void. What was special was that when the demonic blood rushed out, it immediately turned into tens of thousands of blood chi. This blood chi also flickered with a bloody color, complementing the black flames. Although this blood chi did not spread to the extreme like outside the void to form a blood mist, it was still dense and spread around Xiaohua, firmly protecting him. Roar! Xiaohua let out an angry roar from his throat. There was no sound in the void, but the nearby pitch-black color actually trembled. Xiaohua's body rapidly swelled along with the roar that sounded like a demonic person. As his body swelled, the flesh and blood within Xiaohua's body also swelled. The flesh and blood that had been burned to death by the brilliance now went crazy. Under the blood-dripping paradise, it also evolved into demonic blood. Countless demonic heads that were almost invisible to the naked eye emerged from within his body, roaring as they rushed out of his body. At this moment, Xiaohua's figure was like a demon god that was dozens of feet tall. The blood-red armor covered his head and feet. On the armor, tens of thousands of demons would occasionally roar and rush out. At other times they would devour each other. If one looked carefully, these demons were also formed by countless smaller demons. The blood-red armor's blood-red light mixed with the black light, illuminating the surroundings. The light that was invisible to the naked eye was completely excluded from this blood-red light. Occasionally there was a light that could pierce the blood-red light, but it was devoured by the demonic heads on the blood-red armor. These devoured demonic heads roared angrily and grew a lot stronger. Ha ha! Xiaohua looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. His face was sinister. On the top of his head, two horns flickered with a faint golden light. This golden light flickered slightly as if they were breathing. As the golden light flickered from the gaps of the blood-red armor, strands of golden light appeared in the blood-red and black flames, flowing everywhere in the blood-red light. The demonic realm's cultivation method actually has such an effect. It's really beyond Xiaohua's expectations. Xiaohua once again relied on himself to survive in a desperate situation. He was in a really good mood. With a wave of his hand, the wishful steel staff appeared in his hand. Grow, grow, grow. With Xiaohua's proud roar, the wishful steel staff that was once again refined by the green-robed Xiaohua suddenly became more than 200 feet long. Woo! There was no sound in the void, but under the wave of the wishful steel staff, not to mention the momentum just by looking at Xiaohua's demonic body and the giant staff of 200 feet, it could be said to be majestic. And where the wishful steel staff passed, one could see the nearby void shaking as if it was somewhat unstable. Grow, grow, grow. Grow, grow, grow. Xiaohua roared a few times and the wishful steel staff grew and grew at will. It was really beyond Xiaohua's expectations. He thought that after adding the exquisite gold, the wishful steel staff could double in size. However, the wishful steel staff stretched straight for 100 feet before reaching its limit. Similarly, the wishful steel staff grew to several feet before stopping again. Looking at this divine weapon that was taller than an ordinary mountain peak, Xiaohua spontaneously had the ambition to compete with the heavens. He really couldn't imagine what the real wishful steel staff of the 5 elements would look like. Go! Xiaohua roared, and the wishful steel staff in his hand returned to the size of several feet, dancing and flying into the distance. Although Xiaohua had an unparalleled sense of direction in the void, and under the protection of the devil body he was no longer afraid of the colorless brilliance that could burn all things. But it still took him several hours to get out of this murderous void. Using the blood drop paradise did not require any spiritual power, nor did it require any spiritual power. What consumed Xiaohua was the bloodline power. What made Xiaohua feel uncomfortable was that when the blood helmet was born, a bloodthirsty, cruel and violent feeling arose from the bottom of his heart. Even in Xiaohua's eyes, the dark void was completely covered with a layer of blood, which made Xiaohua extremely uncomfortable. When he used the heavenly eye connection and saw the brilliance disappear, Xiaohua immediately returned to his original state. As the blood that formed the blood helmet entered his bloodline, Xiaohua lost a lot of weight. Not only did the scars on the surface of his body disappear, but the blood clots in his body also disappeared. Of course, the earth crystal Yao milk contained in this flesh and blood was completely absorbed by Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua looked at the faint cyan blue brilliance, which looked like flickering fireflies. He knew that there were a few spatial veins in front of him. Although he didn't know which realms these spatial veins would lead to, he knew that one of these spatial veins would definitely have the void storm he wanted. Where should I go now? Xiaohua was extremely hesitant. After experiencing 2 incomparable dangers, he was no longer as reckless as before. Pinching his chin, he waited in front of these passages for the time it took to drink a cup of tea, not daring to break into any of them at will. However, he had not yet reached his original intention, so he had to make another choice. Here, Xiaohua finally took a step and came in front of a passage. In his eyes, this passage looked like the mouth of a gourd. It was narrow on the outside, but it was huge on the inside. Moreover, there was no special brilliance in this passage and it looked very quiet. Alas, I'm afraid it's not this. Xiaohua shook his head slightly. He did not know whether the void storm was similar to the blood-red storm in the Netherworld Eye, but since this space was quiet, there naturally would not be any storm. Could it be this? Xiaohua turned into another passage. This passage was like a winding path, extremely narrow and deep. Inside there were also some thumb-sized wriggling things that were invisible to the naked eye. When Xiaohua's divine sense swept over these wriggling things, his divine sense was immediately swallowed up by the wriggling things. How could Xiaohua dare to enter? Not to mention just thinking about it made Xiaohua feel disgusted. It's too quiet and it's too dangerous. It's really troublesome. Xiaohua looked at the surrounding brilliance that was like a spider web and sighed in his heart. This is only this Xiao who can see through it with his divine sense. If it was someone else, they would not even know how they died in the void storm. After searching for a while, Xiaohua came in front of a passage. This passage was a little strange. The brilliance was actually golden, and there were extremely obscure fluctuations in the invisible passage from time to time. These fluctuations gave Xiaohua an indescribable feeling of familiarity. Is this the fluctuation of a transcendent treasure? Or is it the fluctuation of a formation? Xiaohua frowned slightly and thought for a while, but he did not have any clue. He only felt that it was familiar, but he did not know how it was familiar. Just as Xiao Hua was thinking, a clear fluctuation appeared about 10 zhong in front of him. Along with the appearance of the fluctuation, a strong wind was generated. Of course, this strong wind was only for a flash, and in an instant, it turned into nothingness. Good, Xiao Hua immediately beamed with joy. Needless to say, if a fluctuation could cause a strong wind, then if there were more fluctuations, wouldn't it cause more strong winds? Isn't this a spatial storm? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua's little heart trembled uncontrollably. A kind of anxiety of getting what he wanted spontaneously arose. Wasn't this what he was thinking? Let's go, not to mention that he didn't know what kind of danger lay ahead. Even if there really was danger, Xiao Hua would still make up his mind to rush into this passage because of the fear storm that might eliminate the earth crystal Yao milk in his body and meridians. However, under Xiao Hua's vigilance, after flying straight into the passage for half an hour, other than encountering some fluctuations from time to time, he did not see any storms, nor did he see any other brilliance. Xiao Hua was somewhat at a loss. Looking at the 3 forked spatial passages in front of him, he did not know whether he should continue forward or retreat. Because after careful calculation he had already been in the void for more than a day, and although Xiao Hua roughly knew the way back, he did not know what would happen on the way back, nor did he know how long the way back would take. If he did not leave some time for his return journey, Xiao Hua really did not have confidence that he would be able to rush back to the void gate in time. Should I go or not? If I go, where should I go? This is troublesome. Xiao Hua stood in front of the passage, vexed as he thought, even if I want to go, that is the last passage. Regardless of whether I succeed or not, I have to return. Just as Xiao Hua was preparing to gather troops and ride horses to war, a thought lit up his mind like lightning. Chapter 3382. I heard second senior brother say that some of the passages in the space vein are stable while some are unstable. Stable ones can safely lead to other realms, while unstable ones are caused by the true qi and laws of different realms clashing against each other. Since it's a void storm, it's only natural that it's caused by instability. How could a stable passageway have something like that? This Xiao wants to find a void storm, so naturally I have to choose an unstable passage. As for which passage was stable, Xiao Hua took out the wishful staff and hit it with all his strength to distinguish it. Cracks flashed in the space, indicating that it was unstable, and in the stable passage, the void could naturally withstand the weight of the wishful staff. Therefore Xiao Hua easily chose the leftmost passage, and the golden brilliance in this passage was more intense. Gods and Buddhas all over the sky. Xiao Hua prayed in his heart. This disciple is a Buddhist disciple who wants to achieve the Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Oh, you can take a look, this disciple's hair is now gone. For this void storm, this disciple has risked his life to come here. Don't let this disciple go empty-handed again. Xiao Hua secretly muttered in his heart, and at the same time he redoubled his caution and slowly flew into the passage. Not only that, but Xiao Hua also calculated the time. If he went deeper and didn't see any void storm, he would make a prompt decision to turn back. Xiao Hua's choice was not wrong. The space within the tunnel was not stable. As Xiao Hua went deeper, indescribable spatial cracks began to appear, and there were even some small spatial collapses. Of course, the seemingly familiar fluctuations also became more and more concentrated, and bitingly cold gales began to wreak havoc in the space. When a gust of strong wind coincidentally hit Xiao Hua's body, it cut a small scar on his body that had just recovered. Xiao Hua was stunned. No, that's not right. This void storm, didn't it directly crush this Xiao's body? It is more powerful than the invisible brilliance just now. How can it crush the earth crystal Yao milk? Is it possible that it is not only the earth crystal Yao milk that was crushed but also the body? No, that's impossible, right? So how can the light baby beast survive? Light beasts are not phoenixes, they can't be reborn from blood, right? Besides, even if light beasts can be reborn from blood, this Xiao can't. There's no way the light beast wouldn't know about this, right? Forget it. Xiao Hua saw that the fluctuations in front of him were becoming more and more violent. A few gusts of wind blew against his face, causing him to feel pain. Xiao Hua felt that his future was not good. He immediately beat the drum of retreat in his heart. However, just as this thought appeared in his mind, a chaotic fluctuation that was even more scattered than falling leaves rushed over. This fluctuation was extremely irregular and without any warning, it instantly passed through Xiaohua's body. Swoosh. Xiaohua's body suddenly disappeared. At the same time, some of the earth crystal Yao milk also turned into pure natural power. Wave. Ripple. Xiaohua was overjoyed at the unexpected good news. He finally understood. This void storm is not a real storm but a chaotic fluctuation. Only the chaotic power vibration could penetrate into his body and shatter the earth crystal Yao milk, which was condensed from natural powers. As long as I fly further in, the more chaotic power vibrations there are, the more the earth crystal Yao milk inside my body can be activated. As a result, Xiaohua was not in a hurry to retreat for the time being. Instead, he continued to fly forward, hoping to encounter even more chaotic fluctuations. However, when Xiaohua encountered a few more waves of chaotic fluctuations, an ominous feeling once again emerged from the bottom of his heart. Crap. What's going on? Xiaohua was greatly alarmed and hurriedly opened his transcendence vision. Not good. When Xiaohua could clearly see the front of the passage, a golden smoke appeared in the air. How could he not know that he had really encountered a void storm? Damn it, although I need a void storm, but there's no need to make such a big fuss, right? I'm afraid this void storm can drown the entire passage. How can I withstand it? Drown the passage? Then, doesn't that mean this passage is going to completely collapse? Thinking of this, Xiaohua was once again stunned. He looked around the passage with an inconceivable gaze. Sure enough, the blue-green passage had already cracked and many thin lines had appeared. Run! How could Xiaohua not know that he had fallen into another danger? Without saying anything further, he stopped moving and was about to escape. Xiaohua's thoughts were extremely fast, but how could he be faster than heaven's might? Just as he stopped, an earth-shattering tremor spread throughout the entire passage. In an instant, it overtook Xiaohua and rushed towards the fork in the road that Xiaohua had just entered. Not good. This tremor has reached the end of the passage and will definitely turn back. This passage was originally unstable, so it will definitely start to collapse from the end of the passage. Sure enough, Xiaohua's thoughts were correct. He had just turned around and flew several meters when a kind of world-destroying aura, a kind of rumbling sound of vibration was born in his mind. In his transcendence vision in front of Xiaohua, at the beginning of the passage, a smoke-like cloud of dust rose up and rushed towards Xiaohua. Before leaving Blackwind Ridge yesterday, why didn't I look at the almanac? Xiaohua was greatly regretful. It must have written on it that everything is not good, or is it not good? Grumbling was grumbling, but Xiaohua did not dare to stay in the collapsing space for too long. He hurriedly turned around and rushed towards the end of the passage. Woo-woo. Although there was no sound in the void, the howling wind was once again produced in Xiaohua's mind, constantly tormenting Xiaohua. Swish. Another turbulent wave, which was like a storm, passed through Xiaohua's body. A part of the earth crystal Yao milk was instantly shattered and absorbed by Xiaohua's body. Right after that, large and small turbulent waves blew one after another like a cool breeze. Although the earth crystal Yao milk in Xiaohua's body was shattered piece by piece, Xiaohua's face did not show any joy, because from these turbulent waves, Xiaohua had already sensed that a storm was coming. The change happened even faster than Xiaohua had expected. After only a few breaths of time, a violent vibration came from Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua felt as if his internal organs were being rubbed by a pair of giant hands. Right after that, the entire void passage began to vibrate as well. Xiaohua hurriedly opened his magic eyes, and immediately saw that not far away, the blue-green light was collapsing like a collapsing wall, falling down section by section. In front of this falling light, there were a few exceptionally bright rings of light, which were rushing over from afar at an even faster speed than the streams of light. Xiaohua originally wanted to fly forward, but seeing this situation he knew that this void passage was collapsing from both ends. If he wanted to escape, he could only find an opportunity in the middle of the passage. Therefore, he hurriedly activated his power, which had already begun to recover gradually, and flew towards a place that he believed to be safe. Although Xiaohua was flying much faster than before, how could he be faster than these waves of energy? Only after flying for tens of zhongs from Xiaohua's left hand, tens of thousands of disordered waves of energy rushed over like stormy waves. Those waves of energy which seemed to be able to drown everything, seemed to not be inferior to the torrents Xiaohua had seen at the beginning. The void is dangerous. Xiaohua's heart trembled incessantly, but his mind was still clear. The heaven's eye of the Dharma eye was activated to the extreme, and the perception of the void was also activated to the extreme, in order to find a trace of survival in this crisis. Wu. Like a tsunami storm in the closed sea, the void storm instantly slammed Xiaohua into the collapsed passage. Those waves of energy were like waves of the sea that battered Xiaohua's body. Swish, swish, swish. Xiaohua's Taoist robe turned into powder and disappeared. In the pitch-black void, an indescribable brilliance could still be seen on the surface of Xiaohua's body. When the waves of energy came into contact with Xiaohua's body, many of them were actually blocked and only 40% of them penetrated into his body. Like washing away the mud on Xiaohua's body, it instantly transformed the earth crystal Yao milk in Xiaohua's body, meridians and upper and lower dantian into pure earth attribute heaven and earth's spiritual qi. Great, Xiaohua felt his body go limp as well as the pressure that was heavier than a mountain. He didn't have the slightest bit of strength to resist, and even his body was collapsing slightly. He smiled bitterly and could only praise his own misfortune. That's right, the problem of the earth crystal Yao milk was about to be solved, but the scale of this void storm was far beyond what he could bear. Perhaps when the earth crystal Yao milk completely transformed into heaven and earth spiritual qi, his body would also collapse, and his flesh would begin to melt away, right? Although Xiaohua had just used the blood drop paradise to resist the nameless brilliance, this void storm was different from before. This kind of monstrous devastation was far from what the previous silence could compare to. Xiaohua didn't feel that his devil realm cultivation method could resist anything. Swoosh. Another wave-like fluctuation rushed into his body. This fluctuation came too strangely, because this fluctuation was comparable to a flood peak between the two other fluctuations, and was close to being in between movement and stillness. If Xiaohua wasn't very sensitive and familiar with fluctuations, he wouldn't have been able to sense it. However, when this fluctuation entered his body, the earth crystal Yao milk didn't move at all. However, when this fluctuation rushed into Xiaohua's lower dantian, Xiaohua's huge gold core, which was like an invisible nebula, suddenly shook. The edges of the nebula began to flicker with strands of star-like luster. After that huge fluctuation rushed into the gold core, it didn't move at all, as if it was absorbed by the nebula gold core. When the fluctuation disappeared, the entire gold core shook violently. In the center of the countless tiny gold cores that couldn't be seen by the naked eye, a fluctuation similar to the previous fluctuation suddenly appeared. This fluctuation condensed into a point, flashing with intense brilliance. There were many tiny gold cores in the nebula gold core. In the beginning, the fluctuation was slightly chaotic, but in a few breaths, all the fluctuations became uniform. Moreover, the moment the brilliance in the center of these gold cores became uniform, it immediately turned into an oval-shaped halo that bloomed from the center of the gold core, as brilliant as fireworks. Chapter 3383. Many rings of light rippled rapidly within the nebula gold core. The entire nebula gold core began to collapse just like the void passage Xiaohua was in. This collapse also produced ripples, unexpectedly forming a resonance with the collapse of the void passage. Waves of ripples were also produced from Xiaohua's body, becoming one with the void passage. Admittedly, it was this tiny body that was drifting around like a pellet in the collapsing tunnel, but it was also these two kinds of fluctuations that combined into one that protected Xiaohua's body and allowed him to escape the calamity of losing his life. At the same time the ripples were produced from Xiaohua's body, the gold core began to collapse, and then collapsed at an extremely fast speed. The direction of the collapse was precisely the trace of black and white light that suddenly appeared in the center of the nebula gold core. Once again, an obscure fluctuation appeared at the spot of light. This fluctuation was extremely slow, but it was also extremely vast and powerful. It was filled with traces of the way of the heavens. The moment it appeared, it was like a sudden clap of thunder in a thunderstorm. It instantly attracted all the fluctuations within the collapsed gold core into it. Pregnant with a baby? Xiaohua was dumbfounded. He had read a lot of ancient books and also comprehended a lot of cultivation methods and experiences. He had even thought about the abnormalities of his pregnancy many times. However, he had never thought that he would be pregnant in the void. However, if he thought about it carefully, Xiaohua once again felt the vastness of the heavenly Tao in this strange situation. His gold core was currently formless. On the hidden immortal continent, it was basically impossible for him to conceive a baby. In this void, the formless gold core revealed the shape of a nebula. If he didn't conceive a baby in the void, where could he conceive a baby? But suddenly Xiaohua thought of a fatal flaw. There is no heaven and earth spiritual energy in the void. Why should I conceive a baby? Even if I know the dragon transformation art, even if I know the immortal body bestowment technique, what's the use? All of these are useless in the void. Right, there is no heaven and earth spiritual energy in the void, but this Xiao has a huge amount of earth crystal Yao milk in his body. This is the purest earth-type spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Xiaohua was like a drowning man who had caught a tree branch. He suddenly realized, but I don't know if this earth crystal Yao milk can support me to successfully conceive a baby. In the short period of time that Xiaohua was thinking, a powerful pressure came from his body and spread out in all directions. His divine sense also came out along with the pressure. Xiaohua felt that this pressure was incomparably powerful, and his divine sense was also extremely vast. However, in this void passage, although the two of them carried the power of the heavenly way, they seemed so insignificant. After just a few dozen feet, they were suppressed by the chaotic fluctuations and the power of space, forcibly compressed around Xiaohua. Of course, this kind of suppression didn't harm Xiaohua at all. On the contrary, it was even more beneficial. On one hand, the divine sense and pressure were the phenomena of a pregnant baby, and they carried the power of the heavenly way. The range that they should have been able to cover was suppressed by the power of the heavenly way. They would be able to use the power of the heavenly way to grow and reach their own range. While competing with the power of the void passage, the pressure and divine sense would inevitably grow beyond Xiaohua's imagination. This kind of opportunity was not something that all cultivators could think of or encounter. On the other hand, the pressure and divine sense were compressed around Xiaohua, forming an extremely powerful defensive buffer. The destructive power of the collapse of the void passage was also not something that Xiaohua could imagine. Something even more powerful than the previous torrent could still kill Xiaohua, and under the protection of this defensive buffer, Xiaohua was able to safely escape. Xiaohua naturally didn't think of this for the time being. As soon as the pressure appeared, he sensed it and knew that he could conceive a baby. Almost without thinking, he waved his hand with great difficulty and put the nascent pregnancy pill he obtained from the Seven Suns Temple's golden steel into his mouth. As soon as the nascent pregnancy pill entered his mouth, it immediately turned into spiritual energy and rushed into Xiaohua's lower dantian with a faint fluctuation. At this moment in Xiaohua's lower dantian, the collapsed golden nebula core had already stopped when it was half a foot in size. The originally tens of thousands of tiny golden cores had now all disappeared, and even the small golden cores formed from the male and female inner cores had turned into speckle-like fluctuations. As for the fluctuations within the golden nebula core that contained the traces of the heavenly way, it was still flickering methodically. It slowly swept through these fluctuations, passed through the golden nebula core, and rushed out of Xiaohua's body. A faint fluctuation from the nascent pregnancy pill fell into the lower dantian and was attracted by the newly born fluctuations of the golden nebula core, sinking into the half-foot golden core. Weng weng weng. As soon as the fluctuation entered the golden core, the entire golden core immediately shook. The black and white speckles of light began to expand, and the golden nebula core began to collapse and shrink again. Following the change of the golden nebula core, an even stronger suction force was born from the invisible golden core. Not only was the medicinal power of the nascent pregnancy pill sucked into the golden core, even the residual true qi in the meridians was sucked into the golden core. What made Xiaohua feel gratified was that this suction force was so strong that although it couldn't suck away the earth crystal Yao milk in the meridians, at the same time that the golden nebula core in Xiaohua's lower dantian changed, following that invisible and soundless fluctuation, it rushed into Xiaohua's body like a tidal wave. The earth crystal Yao milk that was being washed over and over again turned into waves of heaven and earth spirit qi. These heaven and earth spirit qi were all sucked into the golden nebula core to nourish the nascent soul. However, it only moved for a moment before the fluctuation was assimilated by the other fluctuations in the golden core and disappeared. Although the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the vital energy of heaven and earth were continuously sent into the golden core, the entire nebula golden core stopped moving. Xiaohua, who had been nervously observing, finally understood. He threw the nascent pregnancy pill in his hand into his mouth one after another, maintaining the spirit qi and fluctuations of the golden core. Right now the void was abnormally chaotic. Violent fluctuations and strange splendor rose and fell one after another. The collapse not only destroyed the void passage Xiaohua was in, but it also spread out in all directions. It seemed as if the entire network of space was affected by it. As for Xiaohua, he was like a drop of water in the vast ocean, drifting with the waves. He didn't know where his future was. There was a saying in Buddhism: a flower, a world, a drop, a space. Xiaohua was like that at this moment. No matter how dangerous the outside world was, he only silently guarded his heart. With a single thought, he became a nascent soul, paying no attention to the madness of the outside world. He didn't know how long it took. Xiaohua had taken a total of 1440 nascent pregnancy pills. Only then did he see the black and white splendor collide with the outline of the golden nebula core. At this moment, the golden nebula core was about half a qi. The instant the two collided, it was as if the heavenly thunder had attracted the fire of the earth. It emitted lightning like a thunderbolt. Moreover, the golden nebula core contained the inner cores of the male and female lightning beasts. Lightning instantly filled the entire golden nebula core. At the same time, the black and white splendor rushed into the golden nebula core, and the golden nebula core was dyed black and white. Ka. A crisp cracking sound emerged in Xiaohua's heart. The black and white splendor, together with the golden nebula core, cracked. At the same time, an even stronger fluctuation than before rushed into Xiaohua's body. The remaining earth crystal Yao milk was completely shattered. It rushed through his meridians and rushed into his lower dantian, rushing into the shattered golden core. The strange thing was, after this huge amount of earth attribute heaven and earth spiritual qi rushed into the golden core, it actually turned into clusters of tiny fluctuations. It was like 100 birds returning to their nest, clustered in the center of the golden core. As the fluctuations increased, the fluctuations in the center of the black and white splendor suddenly stopped. Xiaohua's body suddenly became still. Xiaohua felt that his thoughts were also stagnated. When Xiaohua's thoughts were able to move again, a half-qi-long baby shadow was born in the black and white splendor. Void nascent soul. Xiaohua's heart was in ecstasy. He immediately understood that he had already completed the crucial step of conceiving a nascent soul. His nascent soul had already been created from nothing. Now, as long as he used the heaven and earth spiritual qi to enrich this shadow, he would be able to conceive a nascent soul. The process of filling the shadow was naturally the process of forming a nascent soul. This was easy in the Dawn Rain continent or even in the hidden immortal continent. Where the pressure was and the range of the divine sense, there would certainly be countless heaven and earth spiritual qi condensed into crystal beads and rushed into Xiaohua's body. With Xiaohua's current cultivation, there would even be a large amount of spiritual qi coming from all directions. However, the current Xiaohua was in the void. Where would the heaven and earth spiritual qi come from? The earth crystal Yao milk in his body had already been completely exhausted, and there was not much nascent soul pills left. He could no longer use them. The only thing Xiaohua could rely on was the nearly endless supply of spiritual grasses in his space. Roar. An indescribable cry sounded. Xiaohua suddenly raised his head. He saw that above his head, a several zhang tall spiritual image doppelganger had appeared. It had the same appearance as the shadow in his lower dantian. My goodness, this is the void. With so much pressure, the spiritual image doppelganger is still several zhang tall. If it was in the hidden immortal continent, how tall would it be? Xiaohua was somewhat aghast. He hastily took out some spiritual grasses from his space and put them into his mouth. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's little calculation was wrong again. These spiritual grasses might have been very old, and the heaven and earth spiritual qi they contained was not much. However, if he used this method to supply the nascent soul, he would be unable to make ends meet. The heaven and earth spiritual qi contained in several stalks of spiritual grasses filled Xiaohua's meridians to the point of choking. Even if he used the dragon transformation art, it would not be able to produce the slightest change in Xiaohua's nascent soul. Not good. Seeing that this path was blocked, Xiaohua's complexion changed greatly. The only thing I can do now is to escape from this void. No matter what world this is, as long as there is heaven and earth spiritual qi, this Xiao can successfully conceive a nascent soul. However, Xiaohua's thoughts were very rich. This void was also very thin. Not to mention that the void was currently collapsing and the storm was raging. Even if it was a calm void, how could he come and go as he pleased? What should I do? Xiaohua's heart was burning with anxiety, but he was also at a loss as to what to do. Xiaohua was distracted and the spiritual grasses in his mouth became slack. His empty meridians no longer had a trace of true qi absorbed into his nascent soul. Damn it! Xiaohua turned pale with fright. He understood in his heart that at this moment, his nascent soul needed an endless supply of spiritual qi. With this mistake of his, wouldn't the nascent soul that had already been condensed collapse? Chapter 3384. Contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, without the supply of true energy, the fake nascent soul didn't distort or collapse as Xiaohua had expected. It didn't even change in the slightest. Instead, at the heart of the fake nascent soul, where the black and white brilliance fluctuated, that slow heartbeat-like fluctuation paused for a moment, then changed its rhythm and firmly vibrated. Following this vibration, the fluctuation rushed out of the fake nascent soul and firmly spread in all directions. Xiaohua was startled. He immediately sent in more spiritual herbs, but at this time he was extremely sensitive to the changes in his surroundings. The numerous fluctuations that were originally blocked by the spirit statue Dharma body were now attracted by the fluctuations produced by his fake nascent soul. As the rhythm changed, they rushed into his body. The pressure and divine sense could not be stopped, and the body could not stop them either. Strand after strand, they all entered the fake nascent soul. The influx of fluctuations caused the fake nascent soul to vibrate again. Dots of fluorescent light were produced in the fake nascent soul, as if a spirit tide was directly surging out of the fake nascent soul. Xiaohua did not have any experience in pregnancy, but he had experience in producing Buddha relics. Seeing this, he immediately knew that the fluctuations were filling the nascent soul. Since his mind was calm, Xiaohua immediately thought of the details just now and cursed inwardly. Damn it, didn't the fake nascent soul pill just enter the dantian? Moreover, the extremely large amount of spiritual energy and true energy that entered the dantian also turned into small fluctuations. In this void, I'm afraid the fluctuations are the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, right? It's just that although the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was vast, the amount of fluctuations it turned into was extremely small, so I didn't notice it. My nascent soul is originally different from ordinary nascent souls, so it should be normal to use the fluctuations in the void to construct it. Thinking of this, Xiaohua opened his Dharma eyes with difficulty. There was also the power of heaven and earth in the void. Xiaohua's surroundings were confined for several hundred feet. However, the confinement of Xiaohua's nascent soul realm seemed insignificant in the void, and even more insignificant in the void storm and the collapse of the passage. However, even so, Xiaohua's transcendence eyes could see that within the chaotic darkness, a multicolored brilliance similar to the spirit tide was also emerging from the void. It flickered with a rhythm as it surged into Xiaohua's body. What was special was that the spiritual idol was similarly absorbing a large amount of brilliance. This brilliance was once again pouring into Xiaohua's body from the top of his head. After an unknown period of time, the void storm gradually stopped, and the collapse of the spatial tunnel also stopped. The void storm was originally a raging storm, but under the influence of Xiaohua's pregnant baby, the destructive power of the storm increased by many times. Within the spatial meridians, it was unknown how many spatial passageways were destroyed by the storm. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was unaware of all this. Within Xiaohua's lower dantian, a 1-foot-long nascent soul gradually solidified. And at this time, Xiaohua's physical body underwent another mutation. Xiaohua activated the dragon transformation art, and his entire meridians began to tremble uncontrollably. Following the trembling of his meridians, his nascent soul also began to tremble. Tiny cracks began to appear in his nascent soul, and their positions coincided with his meridians. Vein sculpting? Xiao Hua was dumbfounded and he almost blurted out in shock. There are meridians in the nascent soul's body? That's right, in Xiao Hua's understanding, the nascent soul of the Tao sect was the condensation of heaven and earth's spiritual energy. It could directly control spiritual energy, so why would it need meridians? Furthermore, in the records of the nascent soul cultivation method that he obtained, there was never any mention of reconstructing meridians. Instantly, Xiao Hua thought of the scene he saw when he first dual cultivated with Fairy Hongxia. That was all the meridians in the body. At the same time, there were many places where the dragon transformation art had not been cultivated. Since the nascent soul wants to reconstruct its meridians, then this Xiao will reconstruct all of these meridians. Seeing this, how could Xiao Hua not know that this was an excellent opportunity for him? He immediately controlled his mind and used all his strength to control the dragon transformation art. Along with the trembling, the meridians in his memory were revealed bit by bit. At the same time, they were being reconstructed in the nascent soul's body. In fact, it was not that ordinary cultivators did not reconstruct their meridians. However, they only had two meridians, one yin and one yang. One connected to the heavens and the other connected to the earth. Even if it was reconstructed, it would be a matter of an instant. Perhaps there were records in the earliest nascent soul cultivation method, but with the passage of time, this had already become common knowledge. Just like how there were only 12 layers of qi refining cultivation methods, no one would investigate further and no one would reconstruct other meridians. Of course, even if there were people who wanted to reconstruct their meridians, the vast majority of them would end up with their nascent soul destroyed. Who would think of something else at the crucial moment of forming their nascent soul? In particular, the human body's meridians were originally balanced. One more or less meridians would cause the nascent soul to collapse. For someone like Xiao Hua who knew about the meridians of the entire body, it could be said that there was no precedent in the past or in the future. Who would walk this dangerous path that was close to no return? Reconstructing meridians was even more dangerous than forming a nascent soul. The time required was much longer, and the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy needed was much greater. The fluctuations within Xiao Hua's nascent soul rushed straight into the depths of the void, attracting even more fluctuations. In the depths of the spatial meridians, the aftermath of the tunnel's collapse had just calmed down. The pitch-black void slightly distorted. At this moment, the fluctuations swept past and a faint whirlpool suddenly appeared in the void. The fluctuations rushed into the whirlpool and were immediately swallowed by the whirlpool. The whirlpool became even bigger and flashed with a gray brilliance. When the gray brilliance covered the entire whirlpool, the whirlpool was already 1 foot in size. At the bottom of the gray brilliance, a pitch-black dot condensed. The pitch-black dot seemed to have shattered and a thumb-sized tentacle stretched out from the inside. Then, like a silkworm breaking out of its cocoon, another tentacle stretched out from the other side of the shattered void. Caw-caw, even though there was no sound, the void looked very thin and brittle. In an instant, cracks appeared from the whirlpool. Then a strange head stretched out from the two tentacles and curiously twisted a few times. Then it opened its sawtooth-like mouth and began to chew on the left side of the whirlpool. The whirlpool was unexpectedly swallowed by this strange insect. When the void next to the head was large enough, a body that was several feet long squeezed out from the void. Crunch, crunch. When this strange insect entered the void, it immediately let out a series of rumbling sounds. Its two gray wings suddenly spread out and it flew towards the direction of the fluctuations. Along the way, all kinds of fluctuations were swallowed by this strange insect, causing this strange insect to grow even larger. After the strange insect flew away, the cracks in the void quickly healed. When it returned to its original state, another tentacle stretched out from the last crack. Unfortunately, this tentacle stretched out several times but was unable to reach out from the crack. In the end, it was forcefully pushed back into the crack and disappeared. Xiao Hua naturally didn't know that the fluctuations of his yuanying had attracted an uninvited guest. At this moment, he had already successfully reconstructed the meridians of his yuanying. The entire dragon transformation art had slowly stopped. This was also a phenomenon that Xiao Hua had never experienced since he started cultivating the dragon transformation art. A sense of exhaustion emerged not only from Xiao Hua's meridians, but also from his nascent soul and physical body. Everyone else only reconstructed 2 meridians, but Xiaohua had reconstructed the meridians of an entire human body. The amount of spiritual sense and concentration he expended was far greater than that of an ordinary cultivator. If it weren't for the fact that Xiaohua had cultivated the sun-shrouding art, the dragon transformation art, and the support of his 10 primordial spirits, he definitely wouldn't have succeeded in something that even Grand Ascension stage cultivators wouldn't dare to attempt. Other people's nascent souls probably only have 2 meridians. At this moment, Xiaohua had already comprehended something. If my nascent soul has so many meridians, then wouldn't my cultivation speed be 100 times faster than others? Feeling his nascent soul and meridians stop resonating, Xiaohua felt like he was about to collapse. However, under the might of the heavens he still sat cross-legged in the void. The nascent soul and meridians stopped resonating for only a moment, then the surface of the nascent soul trembled slightly. This trembling was very subtle and Xiaohua almost didn't want to pay attention to it. However, just as the trembling was about to disappear, Xiaohua suddenly woke up. If it weren't for the fact that he was in the void and was suppressed by the might of the heavens, Xiaohua almost jumped up and down. Damn it, this is a chance for a nascent soul cultivator to reconstruct his physical body. How could I waste it? However, just as Xiaohua was about to control the vibration of his nascent soul to reconstruct his physical body, he hesitated again and thought, do I have to reconstruct my body to be as handsome as second senior brother? Damn it, that guy is already a handsome freak. Even if I reconstruct my body I can't surpass him. Since that's the case, why should I compete with him? Do I have to reconstruct my body to look like Zhang Xiaohua? But Xiaohua's small nose and small eyes, aren't they too ugly? Since I have a devil statue to look like Xiaohua, I don't have to look like him anymore, right? After thinking about it, in the end Xiaohua couldn't bear to part with his current stinky skin and decided to reconstruct his appearance to look like a 24 or 25-year-old. After all, an 18-year-old face was too delicate, giving people a kind of immature feeling. Sigh, so pitiful. Xiaohua touched his smooth cheeks, then touched his bald head that was even brighter than his cheeks and said with a bitter smile, being handsome is also troublesome. Even if I'm reconstructing my physical body while pregnant, I still have to face a huge problem. Just as Xiaohua was indulging in his narcissism, all the phenomena of the pregnant nascent soul and heaven's might came to an end. The collapse of the passage and the storm in the void also came to an end. However, the heaven's might gradually dissipated, and the pressure that Xiaohua released slowly retracted. At the same time, the countless fluctuations that were attracted by the fluctuations of Xiaohua's nascent soul crazily poured into Xiaohua's body like a spirit tide. That huge spirit statue also gradually entered Xiaohua's body along with these fluctuations, gradually fusing with the solemn nascent soul. When the spirit statue fused with the nascent soul crawled out from the top of Xiaohua's head. Although there were endless storms and countless fluctuations in the void, under the heaven's might, the nascent soul's location was also extremely stable. The nascent soul pointed one hand to the sky and the other to the ground and sang, Heaven and earth, 9 directions, soul and spirit, 1 lotus throne, 1 soul burning the soul, 1 heart of the 5 Qis cleansing the mundane, 1 Taoist master with 7 refinements. Chapter 3385. When the nascent soul finished singing, it opened its mouth and the surrounding brilliance turned into a waterfall and fell into the nascent soul's body. The nascent soul seemed to be extremely satisfied and laughed. From now on I will be called Taoist Master Xiao. Before its voice fell, the nascent soul's figure shrank and disappeared into Xiaohua's bald head. The brilliance of the void disappeared and the fluctuations also subsided. Everything indicated that Xiaohua's trip to the void had been successful. Xiaohua's heart was even more calm. The nascent soul formed a seal and closed its eyes to rest. It seemed that the meridian sculpting and body sculpting just now had consumed a lot of its energy. Xiaohua slightly closed his eyes. A very strange yet familiar feeling arose in his heart. The nascent soul could be considered as a doppelganger of Xiaohua, but Xiaohua didn't split his own primordial spirit to the nascent soul. However, this nascent soul gave Xiaohua a kind of feeling. This feeling was similar to his own primordial spirits. Of course, Xiaohua was used to seeing the green-robed Xiaohua and the soul cultivator Xiaohua. Not good. Suddenly Xiaohua opened his eyes, and the nascent soul in his lower dantian also opened its starry eyes. All four eyes flashed with panic. This Xiao is indeed a pregnant nascent soul, and has crossed an unimaginable abyss. Now I can be considered a grandmaster. However, this is a spatial vein and this Xiao only has 3 days. With such a large-scale storm in the void, how can it possibly stop in 3 days? This Xiao's nascent soul is not just 3 days. I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Hurry up and find. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could raise his eyes to look around and use his sense of space to find the direction, an indescribable feeling of horror suddenly arose. In particular, the nascent soul that had just been born trembled and curled up into a ball, seeming to be extremely terrified. Xiaohua raised his head and narrowed his eyes. The pupils in his eyes had already shrunk into a ball. He looked straight at a place in the void. There was nothing special in that place. However, in just half a cup of tea's time in Xiaohua's vision, a gray ball appeared from the dark void. It was like a meteor in the night sky flying towards Xiaohua at an extremely fast speed. See, there are still demonic beasts in the void? Xiaohua was shocked, but he immediately felt relieved. Since the light beast could come to the void, other monsters in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm could certainly come. Since there were monsters in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, people in the hidden immortal continent, and Buddhas in the Pure Land world, then what was so strange about demonic beasts in the void? Shocked, Xiaohua hurriedly opened his eyes. Xiaohua's brows furrowed. His brows furrowed, his brows furrowed. Xiaohua frowned. Xiaohua's eyes. Xiaohua's eyebrows were tightly wrinkled. Far away in the distance there were some lights floating around. These lights were multicolored. They seemed to be the fluctuations left behind by Xiaohua when she was pregnant. Not far from these lights, there was a gray ball of light that was 2 feet in size flying towards the lights. This gray ball of light was the image of a strange insect. Half of this strange insect was the head of this strange insect. On the head there were 2 long tentacles. The tentacles were serrated and looked very sharp. Behind the tentacles were 2 fist-sized pitch-black spots. These pitch-black spots seemed to be made up of thousands of smaller pitch-black spots. If there was no accident, they should be the eyes of the strange insect. Looking at the other half of the strange insect, there was a slight bulge. Layers of gray patches were stacked together. It should be the body of the strange insect. The gray patches converged at the tail of the strange insect, condensing into a sharp spike several inches long. The spike emitted a dark gray color. Looking at the 2 sides of the strange insect's body, there was a pair of feather wings several feet in size. When they flapped, they emitted a black light. Under the wings there were 2 hind legs several feet long like a pair of halberds. Isn't this a locust? Xiaohua instantly connected this strange insect with the small insect that was commonly seen in the countryside. Oh, it's still a little different. Naturally, Xiaohua's transcendence vision couldn't see things that could be seen with the naked eye. Even if a person stood in front of Xiaohua, he might not be able to see them with his transcendence vision. But this strange insect that looked like a locust could actually be seen by Xiaohua's transcendence vision. This strange insect was naturally not a small matter. Moreover, when the strange insect flew to several spots of light, it opened its mouth, which took up almost half of its head and chewed up the light with a few bites. Then it spread its wings and flew elsewhere. The strange insect flew very fast, and the speed at which it ate was even faster. Before long, it had already closed the distance between it and Xiaohua. Not good. This strange insect seems to be coming for me. Looking at the strange insect swallowing the light all the way, whether it was to the left or the right, but the direction it was flying in was his direction. Even the light that was slightly further away from its flight path was not eaten by the strange insect. Xiaohua immediately understood that this was the result of the fluctuations he used to form his nascent soul. Run! This was already the 3rd time Xiaohua tried to escape after falling into the void. Now that Xiaohua had just formed his nascent soul, the true essence in his meridians was abundant. With a thought, his nascent soul was filled with abnormally abundant magic power. Using the lightning evasion technique, he flew towards a place with a loud bang. When Xiaohua was in the late Oris core stage, he had already broken through to the Imperial lightning evasion technique. Now that he had formed his nascent soul, his lightning evasion technique had also improved. When he just started, he was still in the early stage of the Imperial Lightning Evasion technique, but with the infusion of magic power, his speed actually became faster and faster, gradually approaching the late stage. Although there was no sound in the void, the lightning flashing around Xiaohua's body was very dazzling in this pitch-black void. Although Xiaohua was fleeing with all his might, his transcendence eye was still vigilantly staring at the strange insect's location. Seeing that he had used the lightning evasion technique to escape, the strange insect did not detect him at all and was still leisurely eating the light. Xiaohua's heart first relaxed. As long as this strange insect that caused him to tremble didn't chase after him, everything would be fine. Unfortunately, just as Xiaohua was feeling relieved, the strange insect suddenly seemed to wake up. It abruptly raised its head, and its pitch-black eyes were like colored glass reflecting a black brilliance, flashing with a layer of black light. Soon after, the strange insect's two hind legs stomped, and a strange gray brilliance flashed, and the strange insect actually disappeared without a trace. Xiaohua was stunned, and his transcendence eye hurriedly looked around. His heart once again gave birth to a bad feeling. Sure enough, after a few breaths of time, the strange insect's body appeared again, and this time, it was already very far away from the place where it had just disappeared. What kind of divine ability is this? Is it teleportation? Xiaohua turned pale with fright once again. A few breaths of time, even if he used the lightning evasion technique, it was impossible to fly so far away. If this strange insect used a teleportation-like divine ability to chase after him, it probably wouldn't take long to catch up, right? Having already realized that his lightning evasion technique had attracted the strange insect's attention, Xiaohua hurriedly withdrew his lightning evasion technique and switched to the commonly used wind evasion technique. However, there was no wind in this void, and Xiaohua could only rely on his transcendence energy to activate it. The normally handy wind evasion technique was inferior to an ordinary flight technique. When Xiaohua switched to the cloud riding technique commonly used by Confucian cultivators, the strange insect really stopped using the divine ability that made Xiaohua tremble with fear, and switched to a pair of feather wings that were several feet long. But even so, the strange insect's flying speed still seemed to be faster than Xiaohua's by a third, and the distance between him and the insect slowly shrunk. Xiaohua already didn't have the time to think about where the strange insect came from, and also didn't have the time to think about why the strange insect was chasing after him. His transcendence vision was only looking forward. Although his transcendence vision was abnormally tired, he didn't dare to slack off in the slightest, because he felt that this strange insect was more formidable than the water flow, the brilliance of light, and even the void storm. If he was even the slightest bit careless, he might die in its mouth. At this moment, Xiaohua had already lost his perception of the space gate from before. Perhaps it was because the distance was too far, or perhaps the space gate had already closed, but Xiaohua's only thought was to quickly avoid the strange insect and not face it head-on. Xiaohua's thoughts were very simple, and his wish was also very pitiful. But it was this tiny wish that the heavens disdained to fulfill for him. The strange insect had been chasing after Xiaohua all along, and was gradually shortening the distance between them. Fortunately, when the strange insect was not too far away from Xiaohua, in Xiaohua's transcendence vision, he finally saw the end of the collapsed space passage, and in front of him was the intermittent brilliance of the void passage. Obviously, these void passages were also affected by the storm just now, but they had not completely collapsed. Good, Xiaohua was almost ecstatic from his heart. Previously, the boundless void was simply unable to avoid the strange insect, but now that there was a space passage, even if it was incomplete, Xiaohua would still be able to deal with the strange insect, right? Xiaohua cheerfully raised his head and let out a long whistle. As a newly emerged nascent soul grandmaster, he was actually forced to flee in a sorry state by a 2-foot-long strange insect. Xiaohua's heart was really sullen. Unfortunately, the void was still the void. Xiaohua's whistle not only couldn't be heard by himself, but also attracted the strange insect's attention. The strange insect that had been spreading its wings all this time kicked its two hind legs and disappeared. Damn it! Xiaohua shrunk his neck. How could he dare to be arrogant again? He looked left and right, then hurriedly turned around and flew towards a fork in the passage. Xiaohua had just flown close to the fork when the strange insect appeared at the place where Xiaohua was previously. Its mouth was full of fangs flashing with a gray brutality. Not only did the strange insect appear, It also flew forward for a distance. Obviously, it thought that Xiaohua was the same as before and didn't change direction. Seeing this, Xiaohua hurriedly chose a passage and rushed in. At the same time he waved his hand and the sword gourd appeared in his hand. Xiaohua's figure entered the passage, then he immediately hid at the entrance of the passage and quietly stood there. The strange insect flapped its wings and calmly chased after Xiaohua. Without hesitation, it rushed into the passage that Xiaohua chose. As soon as the strange insect rushed in, it saw a pale white brilliance appear in the pitch-black void. This brilliance had a blurry appearance. Then from this brilliance a red and a green brilliance rushed out. The brilliance made a turn in the void and fell between the strange insect's neck. Chapter 3386. Damn it, go to hell. Xiaohua activated the sword gourd and sneered in his heart. He still knew the power of the execution spirit Yuan light. However, everything that followed made him unable to laugh. Because before the red and green execution spirit Yuan light flew out, the strange insect did not stand still under the sword gourd. Instead, its two fist-sized black eyes flashed with a black light. The sword gourd's effect of nailing the mine did not take effect. Xiaohua's heart thumped. He looked at the strange insect again. Seeing the execution spirit Yuan light falling, it actually raised its head, opened its mouth and bit towards the two execution spirit Yuan light. Damn it, it wants to eat this. Xiaohua was shocked. He pointed his finger and the green and red execution spirit Yuan light fell into the mouth of the strange insect. The moment it fell, it slightly turned and cut on the strange insect's body. Caw-caw. Sparks appeared on the strange insect's body, and the two execution spirit Yuan light flew back. The strange insect seemed to be angered by the execution spirit Yuan light. It spread its wings, bared its fangs and pounced on Xiaohua. The void was pitch black and the strange insect was also pitch black. Even the gray on the wings could not be seen clearly in this void. If Xiaohua was not struggling to open his eyes at this time, how could he see the strange insect's attack? Moreover, the strange insect's wings did not seem to be abnormal. Not only was there no sound of wind, but there were also no ordinary fluctuations. It was as if the strange insect was one with the void. Seeing that the strange insect was more flexible than the fish in the water and approached in a few breaths, Xiaohua was shocked again. He did not have time to withdraw the sword gourd, and his other hand was about to take out the wishful rod. But just as Xiaohua's mind thought of the wishful rod, he saw a faint flash of darkness on his left foot, and then a desolate feeling came from his left ankle. Xiaohua's heart sank and he thought this is not good. Because his eyes had been staring at the strange insect, it was to prevent the strange insect's sneak attack. But at this time in his eyes he only saw the strange insect pouncing and did not see any other attacks. In other words, the strange insect actually had a sneak attack that could avoid his eyes. Thinking of this, Xiaohua did not have time to look for the wishful wand. He casually took out a worn-out magic tool from the space and threw it into the void based on his feeling. His body hurriedly curled up. Swoosh. Xiaohua watched as the blue-green magic treasure was shattered by an invisible thing in the air. Then that invisible thing swept past Xiaohua's feet. An extremely cold chill came from Xiaohua's feet and went straight to the bottom of his heart. Hind leg. Xiaohua couldn't see it clearly, but he could see it with his naked eye. It was one of the two hind legs that the strange insect had used to hide in the void. Damn it, this strange insect is too powerful. Xiaohua's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. Not only can the two hind legs fly, they can also be used as weapons. What's more, the hind legs can actually hide from the Dharma eye. Just as Xiaohua dodged the sneak attack from the strange insect's hind legs, the two tentacles in front of the strange insect's head were even more nimble than two soft whips, and swept towards Xiaohua. The fist-sized eyes were like protruding black jade, flashing a bright light. It bared its teeth and bit towards Xiaohua's head. The strange insect's sneak attack and this attack were very ingenious. If Xiaohua didn't know ethereal steps and other martial arts, he would definitely be able to dodge the sneak attack. Xiaohua's body twisted strangely, dodging the tentacles. Unconsciously, his heart was filled with killing intent. Taking advantage of this gap, he put away the sword gourd and took out the wishful wand. After a few chong 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 sounds, he raised the wishful wand and shouted, "Eat this Xiao's staff." While speaking, the wishful wand took advantage of the strange insect's momentum and smashed towards the strange insect's head. The strange insect seemed to know the power of the wishful wand. Without waiting for the wishful wand to reach a few feet in front of it, the two strong hind legs kicked and its whole body suddenly disappeared. Even with Xiaohua's Dharma eye, he couldn't see where it went. Xiaohua had a bitter taste in his mouth. This kind of tactic was also his usual specialty. He didn't expect that a strange insect would use it to deal with him today. "Well, then I'll let you know what this Xiao's means are." Xiaohua grinned and a faint golden light flashed around his body. A Dharma body was quickly born from his body. Even in the void, the golden light illuminated the surrounding dozens of feet. When the Dharma body grew about 10 feet high, the wishful wand in Xiaohua's hand also turned into a size of 10 feet. At this time, just at the edge of the golden light, the strange insect just happened to reveal its body. "Fight!" Xiaohua didn't hesitate and waved his arms a few feet thick. The wishful wand made a silent sound. Before it fell, it had already imprisoned the space where the strange insect was. "Pa!" The strange insect seemed to have just come out of the magical power and had no spare strength to dodge. Without the slightest accident, the wishful wand smashed heavily on the back of the strange insect. Xiaohua could even hear the sound of the strange insect being smashed out. "Grandma, this guy is too powerful." Xiaohua finally breathed a sigh of relief and scolded, "This Xiao is a Yuanying stage master, but I was actually chased by a little guy like you. If people knew, how could this Xiao establish his Dao?" Before Xiaohua could finish, the scene in front of him scared him again. He saw that the strange insect, which was a lot smaller than the wishful wand, had now been smashed into a pancake the size of a foot. However, this pancake flew out from under the wishful wand and then swelled up like a balloon. The two tentacles frantically slashed at the wishful wand. No mistake, right? This can't kill it?" Xiaohua felt a sense of powerlessness in his heart. In the moment when Xiaohua was stunned, the strange insect's tentacles had already wrapped around the wishful wand. Xiaohua only felt a burst of tremors in his hand and looked at the wishful wand again. There were a few scratches left on it. "Shrink." Xiaohua was distressed and hurriedly let the wishful wand shrink. While it was shrinking, he quickly pulled the wishful wand from the strange insect's tentacles and hurriedly put it into the space. When the wishful wand was put into the space, Xiaohua's heart moved again. It was not easy for ordinary cultivators to put into the space, but this strange insect could, right? If it could be put into the space, wouldn't it be up to him to pinch, flatten, and file? Thinking of this, Xiaohua tried to release his consciousness. Who would have thought that as soon as his consciousness touched the strange insect, he would immediately feel like it was being corroded? How could Xiaohua still care about collecting the strange insect? He hurriedly withdrew his consciousness and turned around to escape. Xiaohua was defeated. The strange insect wanted to take advantage of the victory to pursue and attack. However, the strange insect spread its two wings and rushed toward Xiaohua, but this time it attacked Xiaohua's Dharma body. Now Xiaohua's Dharma body was 10 feet tall, and his movements were not agile. How fast was the strange insect? In a flash, it had already pounced on the thick arm of Xiaohua's Dharma body, and then it opened its saw-toothed mouth and began to bite. The Dharma body was actually damaged by the strange insect's bite. Good. Xiaohua was a little panicked. He could not escape and he could not fight. This locust-like strange insect also had a good appetite. Whether it was a magic tool or a Dharma body, it wanted to eat everything. What should he do? Xiaohua did not doubt that even his own body and the nascent soul in his body would be food for this strange insect. It was no wonder that the nascent soul in his body was so scared. What should I do? What should I do? Xiaohua was really at his wits' end. He anxiously thought of a way to defeat the enemy. At this time, the strange insect was on Xiaohua's arm. Xiaohua did not dare to put away his Dharma body. Xiaohua thought for a moment, and with a wave of his other hand, the hand of the nascent soul appeared and grabbed the strange insect. Go to hell, Xiaohua waved his hand, wanting to throw the strange insect far away. Unfortunately, the strange insect opened its mouth and swallowed the hand of the nascent soul. Xiaohua could not even get rid of it. Xiaohua had heard of a hero cutting his wrist, But he did not expect that there would be a day when he would be reduced to this kind of embarrassing situation. Fortunately, it was only the hand of the nascent soul. Xiaohua shouted, "Go!" The nascent soul's hand broke into pieces. Xiaohua didn't dare to use the lightning evasion technique. Instead, he used the Confucian cultivators riding the clouds and riding the mist technique to hastily escape from the passage and plunge into the passage on the left. After experiencing this strange insect, the previous torrent and splendor became child's play. Xiaohua was not afraid that there would be any more dangers in this passage. Xiaohua even hoped that there would be some kind of danger in this passage that he could use to deal with the strange insect. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was disappointed. Not only was this passage very safe, there was no danger at all. Even the strange insect quickly caught up and pounced on Xiaohua with its teeth bared. Xiaohua did not know whether to laugh or cry. This strange insect was like stepping on dog shit staring at him. If he could not kill it, he was afraid that he would not be able to have peace in the future. "Are you trying to test this father's means?" Xiaohua sneered and formed a seal with both hands, preparing to use the power of mountains of the Buddha seal catalog to kill the strange insect. However, the Buddha seal had just formed. Thinking that even the wishful staff could not kill this thing, what use could the power of mountains of the Buddha seal catalog have? Perhaps only the power of the stars and the power of karma that he had not yet comprehended would be useful, right? In addition to the Buddha seal, Xiaohua also had the innate true water. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the innate true water fell out of the air and covered the strange insect. In his eyes, the blue light of the water was very dazzling, and the grayish-black color of the strange insect was completely hidden in the light of the water. "I don't know if it will work this time." After experiencing the attack of the strange splendor, Xiaohua did not dare to believe in the innate true water. He looked at the innate true water with some apprehension in his heart. Suddenly, Xiaohua patted his forehead and said, "Damn it, this father doesn't care if it works or not. Don't I have to escape now? While this thing is trapped, this father can't escape, right?" While speaking, Xiaohua's body flashed with lightning and he rushed into the passage. He only flew out 100 feet, but the brilliance of the innate true water suddenly became dazzling, and even the void was illuminated. Then the innate true water that trapped the strange insect began to freeze. Finally, in the silence, countless cracks appeared in the ice, and the strange insect broke out of the ice again. Its two hind legs kicked the void and disappeared. Chapter 3387. Seeing the innate primordial water that had always been successful outside the void lose its effect again, Xiaohua completely lost his fighting spirit. Although Yu Leijing was extremely arrogant, there was no sound in the void after all. Moreover, Xiaohua had just advanced to the Yuanying stage and the spiritual power in his body was abnormally abundant. In order to escape from the mouth of the strange insect, Xiaohua completely abandoned the principle of keeping a low profile and fled in this void maze in panic. Xiaohua was also unlucky. This strange insect was really powerful. Xiaohua relied on his outstanding void perception and fainted several times in this void maze, but he still couldn't get rid of the strange insect. Even the small collapse of the void like the first time Xiaohua encountered several times. But every time Xiaohua went directly from one passage to another before he could calm down, the strange insect quietly appeared near him again. It was as if this strange insect could directly pass through the void. Moreover, this strange insect's perception also passed through the passage and its magical power was far beyond Xiaohua's. Of course, when Xiaohua shook the strange insect was also not to be trifled with. Several times it actually saw through Xiaohua's tricks and rushed in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua used the innate primordial water to maintain himself and also used the blood drop paradise, Samadhi true fire and other magical powers. Not to mention that the Samadhi true fire was eaten by the strange insect in one gulp, just the blood drop paradise alone. Before Xiaohua could form the blood helmet, the strange insect's wings spread open and trembled rapidly. Xiaohua originally thought that the strange insect was afraid, but who knew that the strange insect was even faster than before and almost rushed into Xiaohua's mouth. It turned out that the strange insect was excited. Xiaohua had no choice but to escape again. During the time he was escaping, Xiaohua also understood that there was something on his body that attracted the strange insect. As for what it was, Xiaohua was not sure, but Xiaohua already had some understanding. If there was no accident, it should be the phenomenon of his yuanying stage that attracted the strange insect. Thinking about the strange insect swallowing the Dharma and swallowing the fluctuations, maybe it was the yuanying in his body that attracted it. Since he couldn't give up on the yuanying, he could only escape. The way he escaped was really dark. Xiaohua's lofty aspirations of just advancing to the yuanying stage had already been trampled under the feet of the strange insect. Looking at the pitch-black and endless void in front of him and then looking at the black inhumane strange insect behind him, Xiaohua wanted to cry but had no tears. I'm just advancing to the nascent soul stage. Why is the heavens playing such a joke on me? It was no wonder that Xiaohua was sorrowful. When others advanced to the nascent soul realm, which one of them didn't enter seclusion for dozens of years? After carefully comprehending the heavenly Tao, one's Tao heart would be calm and one's Tao foundation would be stable. Once one's heart and mind merged with the heavens, one would be able to conceive a baby in one's golden core? When pregnant, who didn't hide far away and stay away from people? Some of them even went to the blessed enclave to look for their seniors to protect them. Xiaohua, on the other hand, not only did he get a Jindan comparable to a nebula, he even got a hidden Jindan by accident. His divine sense couldn't even detect it. This was simply unprecedented. Even he himself didn't know how to conceive a baby. Now that they were in the void, the strange fluctuations actually carried traces of the heavenly Tao. What was special was that Xiaohua's hidden pill could actually be seen in the void. This was also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Xiaohua. Finally, after using more than 1,000 nascent gestation pills, he was able to conceive a baby. If he could conceive a baby smoothly, that would also be good. Xiaohua once again encountered a strong void storm. It was unknown whether it was the void storm that made Xiaohua successful, or Xiaohua's nascent gestation that pushed the void storm forward. In short, 100 years ago, Xiaohua's nascent gestation pill brought disaster to the sword mound. The sword mound that took an unknown number of years to form was destroyed in an instant. Now Xiaohua's nascent gestation pill brought disaster to the spatial vein. An unknown number of spatial passages were also destroyed in an instant. Thinking about a cultivator like Xiaohua who brought disaster step by step, how could the heavenly Tao not favor him? The pitiful Xiaohua was already powerless under the ravaging of the heavenly Tao. Without any scruples, he urged his imperial thunder to fly into any spatial passage he saw. When he saw any void collapse, he rushed in. That strange insect was even more arrogant. When it saw Xiaohua's flickering lightning, it didn't have any pupils. Only a pair of hard-shell eyes flashed with black light. It either spread its wings and chased after Xiaohua like a pair of lovebirds under the heavenly Tao, or it kicked its legs and emerged from under Xiaohua's feet. Every time it got close to Xiaohua's side, it would stick out its fangs without any pity for the fairer sex. It couldn't wait to bite off a piece of Xiaohua's flesh. Xiaohua couldn't bear this kind of intimacy. He tried to think of ways to avoid it. Either he hit it on the head with the wishful staff or poured cold water on it. But these methods couldn't extinguish the fire in the strange insect's heart. It even made the strange insect fly into a rage. After chasing for more than an hour, Xiaohua didn't know where he had escaped to. He only knew that the Taoist robe he had just put on was already tattered like cotton. Seeing the strange insect shamelessly opening its sawtooth on his back, and those whip-like tentacles wanting to pull him into its arms, Xiaohua suddenly lowered his body and dodged the strange insect's intimacy. Then he desperately flew down. There was no direction in the void. At first Xiaohua was still flying down rapidly. After a while he adjusted his body slightly and flew horizontally. At this time the void was a bit strange. There was an inexplicable light in the darkness. These light rays could be seen with the naked eye. And where these light rays penetrated, there were some faint ripples like water ripples. Xiaohua didn't know what these ripples were, but when he saw the abnormality in the void, he was secretly happy. This was because he knew that only the abnormality could give him a chance to escape. Xiaohua's joy had just been born when the strange insect immediately exposed its head a few feet in front of his head. This ugly head instantly extinguished Xiaohua's joy. At this point, Xiaohua couldn't help but admire this strange insect. Its tracking ability was truly top-notch. This void was simply like its home. No matter where he fled to, it would always appear within a distance of less than 3 meters from him. Just as Xiaohua was about to use the wishful staff, a few feet behind Xiaohua, the place where the light rays had just appeared suddenly rippled with a layer of black ash. Xiaohua was overjoyed when he saw this. He knew that another channel had collapsed. Almost without thinking, he came to a sudden stop and then flew backward, rushing into the grayish-black dot. When Xiaohua flew into the black dot, which was just the size of a fist, had expanded to the size of a person. It was just enough for Xiaohua to fly through. During this period of escape, Xiaohua already knew that although this strange insect could use a magical ability that was close to teleportation, this method could not be used continuously. Generally speaking, the strange insect had to fly steadily for a while before it could continue to use its hind legs to teleport. This time, the strange insect had just teleported, so he was afraid that it could not immediately catch up. He had to use this opportunity to escape. In front of Xiaohua's eyes was a mixture of gray and black. He knew that he was about to enter another channel. With the little light in this void channel, Xiaohua proudly looked at the strange insect that was somewhat furious as it chased after him. Now the collapse that Xiaohua stretched out was temporary. The time it took to form was very short. Xiaohua had calculated before that it could only allow him to pass through. Although the strange insect flew very fast, by the time it caught up, the collapse had already disappeared. Of course, if Xiaohua was lucky and came to a more complicated void channel, he might be able to escape the strange insect's tracking. Xiaohua's eyes darkened and then it lit up again. It was just like when he used the transmission array on the Xiaoyu continent. Xiaohua slightly frowned as he looked at the void channel that he had just entered. He could not help but feel a little strange. This channel was completely different from the previous one. It was like a place under the sky. Xiaohua's surroundings were full of light, but where did this light come from? Xiaohua could not find the reason for a while. Looking at the collapse that Xiaohua had just passed through as he had expected, it had already turned into a clear cloud that was gradually closing up. Damn it, who cares where this is? Escaping with my life is more important. Xiaohua was stunned, but he came to a realization. He cursed inwardly, and lightning flashed around his body as he prepared to fly in a certain direction. As soon as he activated the lightning escape technique, the familiar sound of lightning came from his body with a rumbling sound. "Io here!" Xiaohua cried out in surprise and hurriedly released his divine sense. Sure enough, there was actually not dense heaven-earth origin chi in this channel. Gurgle gurgle. Xiaohua hesitated for a moment, and the sound of boiling water came from above his head again. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over and his expression changed greatly. Who else could it be? Naturally, it was the enemy that came out from the two tentacles. Go, Xiaohua did not have time to look anymore. His whole body turned into a bolt of lightning, and he flew into the distance several times faster than the previous void. Who would have thought that just as Xiaohua flew out for more than 1,000 feet, just 100 feet in front of his head, another silver brilliance flashed, and immediately the void began to rotate rapidly. In just a moment, a channel of several feet in size appeared out of thin air, and in this channel another monster appeared. Ah! Xiaohua was really surprised. His heart was shocked, but he calmed down again. He stretched out his hand and the wishful staff was already in his hand. Now that he was in a desperate situation with a wolf in front and a tiger behind, he could only choose to fight. The monster quickly flew out of the channel and arrived in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua's eyes narrowed slightly, and with the help of the light in the space, he saw that the monster was several feet in size. Its whole body was gray and the surface of its body was as smooth as oil. The light in the space shone on it and produced a reflection of light. There were no wings on the monster's back, only a dozen spike-like protrusions that stood straight on its spine. The monster's body was upright and slightly tilted, with two thick hind legs standing in mid-air, and two thin and short forelegs slightly hugging the front of its chest. Whether it was the forelegs or the hind legs in front of its foreclaws, the sharp points were emitting a green brilliance. Behind the monster, a thick tail like a lion's tail was fluffy, and where it swayed slightly, the gray mane was shining. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.